My stunning CEO wife. As soon as Ye Xiaotian returned to the city, he got into big trouble. He slept with a woman of noble status and exquisite appearance. The most important thing was that this woman might be pregnant. So, a marriage contract was placed in front of Ye Xiaotian, with a term of 1 month. Chapter 1: A 1-month contract marriage. In July, Jiang City was scorched by the blazing sun. Few people were on the streets, as such weather was perfect for staying indoors with air conditioning, eating ice pops, and ideally, spending time with a woman. Sure enough, the heart of a woman is the most venomous. It was just sleeping with you, didn't you feel any pleasure? The friction is mutual, and here you are, the president of the Ouyang Group, but you don't even understand this basic concept. Ye Xiaotian sat on the curb, his white shirt crumpled and sticking to his body. Sweat dripped down his face and mixed with the dust on the ground. He muttered to himself, his gaze drifting to the building across the street. It was a grand, imposing skyscraper with the words, Ouyang Group, on the top. I really want to see what kind of work you're arranging for me. He grumbled as he took a deep drag on his cigarette. When he stood up, he flicked his wrist, and the cigarette butt, seemingly with a mind of its own, landed directly in a trash can over 10 meters away. Ye Xiaotian used to be the top sharpshooter in China's elite special forces, the Dragon Squad. However, a month ago, due to an unspecified reason, he suddenly retired and ended up in Jiang City. Half a month ago, after getting drunk one night and falling asleep in a hotel, he woke up to find a woman in his arms. Under the influence of alcohol, he slept with her. The next day, the crimson stain on the bed made his eyes hurt, and he found out her identity: Weiwei, the president of the Ouyang Group. At first, he thought it was just a one-night stand. But the next day, a contract appeared before him, and they became contract husband and wife. According to the contract, they were to act as husband and wife for 1 month. This was something Ye Xiaotian still couldn't wrap his mind around. Why do we have to pretend to be married for a month? That guy hasn't even shown up yet. Did he take my words as the wind in his ears? Ouyang Weiwei sat in her exclusive chair, her figure perfectly outlined by a light grey business suit. The suit was alluring yet exuded a sense of nobility and coldness that filled the air. She glanced at the time and saw that it was nearly 10 in the morning. Her delicate features took on a cold expression, and her almond-shaped eyes widened slightly with an aura of authority. The male supervisor standing before her, reporting to her, trembled in fear. President, the supervisor couldn't even get his words out. Despite the air conditioning in the office, sweat poured down his forehead, yet he dared not wipe it off. Who was Ouyang Weiwei? In Jiang City, she was an absolute goddess. Countless men, from rising political stars to second-generation heirs of wealthy families and business elites, secretly desired her. But no one dared to pursue her because she was the executive president of the Ouyang Group. The Ouyang Group was a colossal entity in Jiang City, and Ouyang Weiwei ruled with absolute authority. Upon taking office, she replaced almost half of the middle management, leaving all those who opposed her trembling in fear. Under these circumstances, the male supervisor didn't dare to make a move. He was wondering whether he had failed to report something properly when Ouyang Weiwei waved her hand. You can continue your report. She motioned with her fair arm, which relaxed the supervisor, who quickly finished his report and fled the office. His back was already soaked with sweat, and facing Ouyang Weiwei made him feel as though he was facing a tiger. He couldn't help but wonder who would be able to tame this president, but he imagined that it must be a man of extraordinary stature. Had it not been for that night when I got drunk, I would never have ended up in the wrong hotel room. That was my first time. Ye Xiaotian muttered to himself. Ouyang Weiwei, however, had no time to care about her subordinate's thoughts. Her almond-shaped eyes narrowed, and her delicate face took on a trace of anger. Moreover, I still haven't had my period, and I'm afraid I might be pregnant. If it weren't for the fear of raising a child without a father, I would have already hired someone to kill him. How could I have signed this contract marriage and made him work here? The more she thought about it, the angrier she became, as she had no good feelings for Ye Xiaotian at all. He had no taste, was vulgar, never on time, and was simply useless. Bang! Suddenly, the office door was pushed open, and Ye Xiaotian entered, casually sitting in the chair opposite her. Wifey, I'm here. Ye Xiaotian grinned, his eyes scanning Ouyang Weiwei up and down. Her S-shaped curves were perfectly outlined by the uniform, and her delicate, perfect face seemed like a masterpiece of heaven. Even the cold aura she exuded made Ye Xiaotian nod. Sleeping with a woman like her wasn't a loss. Who told you not to knock before entering? And what did you call me? Ouyang Weiwei's face immediately darkened, her teeth clenched in anger as she glared at Ye Xiaotian, who was wearing a wrinkled shirt with visible stains. She felt disgusted. She had kept her virginity for over 20 years, only for it to be taken by this man. Wifey, aren't you? Ye Xiaotian shrugged nonchalantly. Of course not. Ouyang Weiwei growled, her gaze murderous. If looks could kill, Ye Xiaotian would have died 1,000 times over. You said so yourself. In that case, I'm leaving. I really don't want a cold, dead wife like you. Ye Xiaotian immediately stood up, and in the time it took to speak, he was already at the door, about to leave. Wait. Ouyang Weiwei quickly spoke up. What is it? Ye Xiaotian turned around with a strange expression on his face. This look only made Ouyang Weiwei want to grind her teeth in fury. Don't forget our contract. If you break it, you'll have to pay a fine of 1 million. Ouyang Weiwei clenched her teeth as she tried to calm herself down. If she weren't pregnant, she would have killed this shameless man 100 times over, no, 1,000 times. Cough, I was just joking. I'm not leaving. Ye Xiaotian quickly returned to his seat when he saw her face change upon hearing the figure of 1 million. Heh. Ouyang Weiwei sneered, but before she could speak again, she was interrupted. Wifey, no, Weiwei, that night I did get drunk, so I don't remember the exact details. But did you drink too? Do you remember what happened? Could it be that we didn't sleep together at all, and the bloodstain was just a prank of yours? Or maybe you were attracted to my strong body and forced yourself on me. We're both adults now, you can tell me. Don't worry, I won't look down on you. As Ye Xiaotian changed his tone and spoke, he made a pose with his arm, a grin on his face as he looked at her, expecting an answer. Ouyang Weiwei's eyes burned with fury, and in the next second, she threw her ceramic cup at him with lightning speed. Go to hell! Ouyang Weiwei shouted, her anger reaching its peak as the cup flew straight toward Ye Xiaotian's forehead. Shit, what are you doing? Someone like you, who wants to kill her husband, would be punished with a death sentence in ancient times. Ye Xiaotian tilted his head just in time to avoid the cup, which shattered into pieces. He glared at Ouyang Weiwei angrily. Get out now. Your job is security. Ouyang Weiwei, for the first time, desperately wanted to see this man dead. But remembering that she was pregnant, she held back her anger and gritted her teeth. If it weren't for carrying this bastard's child, she would have made him pay. Security? You want me to be a security guard? Do you know how humiliating that is for me? As someone with a high school diploma, I must protest. The only position worthy of me is your personal secretary, the one who accompanies you to bed. Ye Xiaotian babbled on, trying to get Ouyang Weiwei to change her mind. But when he saw her pull out a knife from the drawer, he immediately ran out of the office. Security it is. But one day, you'll pay for your blind eyes. Ye Xiaotian shouted as he fled. As soon as he closed the door behind him, he heard a swish, followed by the door shaking violently. He looked up and saw the sharp edge of the knife poking through the crack in the door. Chapter 2, Aunt Flo. The sharp edge of the knife gleamed with a blinding cold light, causing the corner of Ye Xiaotian's mouth to twitch. Is this really necessary? Even though we're contract spouses, we did have one night together. To be this ruthless, are you not afraid of becoming a widow? He muttered. And besides, it was you who came into my room. He suddenly regretted going out drinking that night. If he had known he'd be dealing with all this trouble, he never would have done it. Even though, in every possible way, Ouyang Weiwei was flawless. I don't understand how anyone at this company can put up with you. You're so cold, with you here, they don't even need to use air conditioning, they save electricity, Ye Xiaotian continued with venom, but before he could finish, a gentle woman's voice interrupted. You must be Ye Xiaotian, right? The president asked me to take you to the security department to report. Looking at Ye Xiaotian, who had dared to curse the near empress like Ouyang Weiwei, Dong Shui, with her watery, smiling eyes, seemed calm and composed. Yes, I'm Ye Xiaotian. And you are? Ye Xiaotian turned around, and as soon as he saw Dong Shui's gentle, charming face, his eyes lit up. He immediately reached out his hand, his intentions obvious. Her professional office attire clung to her curvaceous body, accentuating her hourglass figure. Her small waist, delicate curves, and perfect hips were framed by the uniform, while a hint of her jade-like legs peeked out. Ye Xiaotian's eyes sparkled, drawn to the soft, inviting look in her eyes. This was the kind of woman you could take home. Forget Ouyang Weiwei, she could go to hell. Dong Shui, seeing the lecherous gleam in Ye Xiaotian's eyes, couldn't he help but be a little startled. Usually, when men were around her, they tried to present themselves as gentlemanly, hoping to win her favor. But every time, their greedy, burning eyes betrayed them, making her dislike them even more. But seeing Ye Xiaotian, so shameless and without any pretense, she couldn't bring herself to dislike him. In fact, she found it a bit amusing. Hello, I'm Dong Shui, the head of the IT department, and I also serve as the head of the security department. She extended her delicate, soft hand, which was coveted by many men in the company. Ye Xiaotian felt a rush of satisfaction as he grasped her soft, tender hand. He felt as if he could play with this hand for a year. But after a second, he quickly withdrew his hand. Let us go. With a leader like you, I'm sure I'll have a great time here. Ye Xiaotian said seriously, although his eyes were still lingering on her chest. Dong Shui didn't respond but blushed slightly. She had never extended her hand to a man in this way before, especially not for the first time, but the fact that Ye Xiaotian only shook her hand and released it immediately made her feel a little better. In her mind, she thought, good things come with time. A handshake is nothing, sleeping in the same bed later on is the real skill. As Ye Xiaotian walked behind her, his eyes lingered on her round, shapely backside, and he couldn't help but rub his hands together, thinking, if Dong Shui knew what was going through my mind, she'd probably immediately take back whatever positive feelings she had for me. Ouyang Group had many departments, and since it covered real estate, pharmaceuticals, retail, amusement parks, hotels, and more, it was bustling with activity. Everywhere Ye Xiaotian looked, he saw people on the move. However, when the staff saw Dong Shui walking with a man, especially Ye Xiaotian, who was openly lecherous in his gaze, the office buzzed with gossip. Some men even shot Ye Xiaotian glances as sharp as daggers. Looks like Director Dong is pretty popular around here, Ye Xiaotian commented, noticing the attention. Through their conversation, he learned that Dong Shui was both capable and stunning, which explained why she managed to head both the IT and security departments. Of course. Dong Shui replied proudly. She won't usually act this way, but facing Ye Xiaotian's teasing, she couldn't help but show a touch of her playful side, looking like an adorable little woman. Although you're my superior, I think I should test your brainpower. After all, a leader has to earn the respect of their subordinates, don't you think? Ye Xiaotian shifted the topic, making Dong Shui pause for a moment. Okay, how do you want to test me? She asked, now intrigued by what kind of test Ye Xiaotian had in mind. Simple. I'll ask you a question, and you choose how to answer, Ye Xiaotian said, and seeing Dong Shui nod, he continued, Director Dong, if you were dying of thirst in the desert and had 2 cups of water in front of you, one with a man's essence and the other with, well, Aunt Flo's essence, which one would you drink? Man's essence. Aunt Flo's essence. Dong Shui was stunned for a moment. She hadn't processed the question, but upon seeing the mischievous look in Ye Xiaotian's eyes, her face immediately flushed red. You. If it were any other man, she would have slapped him and walked away, but seeing the playful expression on Ye Xiaotian's face, she found herself unable to speak, her face flushed with a mix of embarrassment and amusement. Come on, Director Dong, which one would you choose? This is a test of your brainpower, you know, Ye Xiaotian said with a grin, clearly enjoying her discomfort. I wouldn't choose either. Dong Shui glared at Ye Xiaotian, pouting angrily. She couldn't see how this question had anything to do with intelligence. Looks like Director Dong's brainpower isn't as sharp as I thought. Ye Xiaotian shook his head, feigning disappointment, which only served to make Dong Shui feel challenged. Then what about you? Which one would you choose? Dong Shui asked, turning the tables on him. Her lips curled into a playful smile. She didn't believe Ye Xiaotian would dare answer. I'd choose both, Ye Xiaotian shrugged, saying it so casually. There's no such option. Dong Shui protested immediately, but as she looked into Ye Xiaotian's teasing eyes, she suddenly realized that in the scenario, both options could be considered water. She was left speechless. Chapter 3, High School Classmate. Everyone, please stop what you're doing for a moment. Let me introduce you to our new security guard, said Dong Shui as she walked into the security department. She clapped her hands to get everyone's attention. Huh? Why is the department head's face so red today? Is it because of the heat? Some of the more nimble guards immediately turned down the air conditioning, but they quickly noticed that the flush on Dong Shue's gentle and pretty face didn't seem to fade. This is Ye Xiaotian, your new colleague. Zhang Peng, you're in charge of his training, Dong Shue said hurriedly, nodding toward a burly man with a buzz cut. Without even sparing Ye Xiaotian a second glance, she practically fled the scene, almost as if she were running away. She seemed to have forgotten that Ouyang Weiwei had asked her to monitor Ye Xiaotian. Why is she running so fast? It's not like I'm going to eat her. Despite Dong Shue's graceful exit, Ye Xiaotian's sharp eyes noticed her hurried footsteps, and the blushing redness of her ears. Such a pure girl. I like her. Don't worry, Minister Dong. I'll train him well, Zhang Peng said, his gaze lingering on Dong Shue's graceful figure before it shifted back to Ye Xiaotian. Ye Xiaotian. Zhang Peng, the head of the security department, looked at Ye Xiaotian with a scrutinizing gaze. He was an elite former reconnaissance soldier from a special forces unit, skilled in both physical and mental capabilities. He wasn't interested in being just a small team leader, but Dong Shue's presence in the department kept him here. Yes, that's me. Do you smoke? Ye Xiaotian smiled, casually pulling out a pack of cigarettes and offering one to Zhang Peng. During work hours, put that away. Zhang Peng glanced at the cheap cigarettes and the wrinkled, stained shirt Ye Xiaotian wore, his eyes flashing with disdain. Still, his voice remained firm. Seems like this kid's just some nobody. As for why the minister personally brought him in, well, who doesn't he know that Minister Dong is the most approachable in the entire company? She probably just did it out of convenience. Li Chuanyuan, teach him what needs to be taught, Zhang Peng said, losing interest in Ye Xiaotian. He waved his hand at another security guard before heading to his office. Once Zhang Peng entered his office, the atmosphere in the security department became lighter. The other security guards crowded around Ye Xiaotian, eager to chat. Wow, so the minister personally brought you here. You must have some serious luck. Tell us, what is it like walking next to Minister Dong? Since it was still working hours, there weren't many guards left in the department, but those who remained gathered around Ye Xiaotian, looking at him with envy and jealousy. It feels like I've been walking on air. I think I don't need to shower for a few days, Ye Xiaotian said, giving a sly wink and making a gesture that only men understood, causing the room to burst into laughter. Ye Xiaotian continued passing around cigarettes, and the atmosphere grew more relaxed. However, when he passed one to Li Chuanyuan, his cigarette was swatted away. Ye Xiaotian, I didn't expect to see you here. Do you even recognize me? Li Chuanyuan said, his eyes full of malice, though his expression was one of petty triumph. Of course I recognize you. Just now, Captain Zhang asked you to teach me something, Ye Xiaotian responded, glancing at the discarded cigarette, smiling innocently. Cut the crap. Think carefully and remember me. Li Chuanyuan sneered, sizing up Ye Xiaotian, who was dressed like a worker in a wrinkled shirt. He thought to himself, this guy used to be the big shot in high school. The arrogance inside him began to grow. To be honest, when he first saw Ye Xiaotian, he thought he was hallucinating. Who would have thought the former high school legend would end up as a security guard? And judging by his clothes, he might even be worse off than a worker. Thinking back to the humiliation he suffered in high school because of Ye Xiaotian, Li Chuanyuan felt a sick sense of pleasure. Sorry, I really don't remember you. After all, you know how busy we all are, and I don't really bother remembering small roles like you, Ye Xiaotian said with an apologetic expression, but the words he said caused Li Chuanyuan's face to stiffen. Did he just call me a small role? Yes, back in high school, he was just a minor figure compared to Ye Xiaotian. But now? You don't recognize me, but I remember you, Ye Xiaotian. Who would have thought that someone so exceptional back in high school would end up like this? Li Chuanyuan said with an air of disdain, turning to the other guards and speaking loudly. Everyone, let me tell you about Ye Xiaotian's past. He was a legend in high school, always ranked number 1 in the whole school, without exception, for 3 years straight. And his sports skills. He was the king of basketball, soccer, and track. On top of that, he had quite the reputation outside of school, with countless girls writing him love letters. As Li Chuanyuan spoke, the other guards looked shocked. This resume was impressive, but why did he end up working as a security guard? However, after graduating high school, he destroyed his future and disappeared for 5 years. We all thought he'd become someone amazing, but look at him now. Li Chuanyuan said with a mocking laugh. I wonder how some of the people back in high school felt when they were overshadowed by Ye Xiaotian. Wang Liang, you remember him? He was a nobody next to Ye Xiaotian, but now he is the CEO of Xingye Technology with a fortune of over 100 million. Zhang Qiang, remember him? He nearly got expelled because of Ye Xiaotian, but now he is the secretary at the city government and will soon be the deputy mayor's chief secretary. As each name was mentioned, the guards became more and more stunned. These were all successful men now, but they were all overshadowed by Ye Xiaotian in high school. But now, why? Ye Xiaotian, you were such a big shot in high school, but now you're just a security guard. What a disgrace! Li Chuanyuan said with satisfaction, spitting as he mocked. A disgrace? Ye Xiaotian, who had already lit a cigarette without anyone noticing, exhaled a puff of smoke, a hint of melancholy spreading across his face. Did I disgrace myself? Ye Xiaotian said coolly, his tone calm yet firm. You're the one talking about disgrace, yet aren't you a security guard too? Li Chuanyuan's face stiffened with embarrassment at Ye Xiaotian's retort. And about the people you mentioned? They still don't compare to me. You have no idea what I've been through, Ye Xiaotian continued, his confidence emanating like a tidal wave. He had been through more than most could imagine. He had commanded special forces from countries like Alpha and Seal, represented his country in multiple elite soldier competitions, and was regarded as both the most respected and most feared person in the world. He had the right, and the audacity, to say this. Not worth mentioning. Anyone can talk big. Li Chuanyuan's face twitched in embarrassment, but he suddenly saw an opportunity to retaliate. His eyes lit up, and he immediately went to speak. I remember you, Li Chuanyuan. I remember you were so scared you wet yourself in front of me. How about now? Want to relive that moment? Ye Xiaotian stepped forward, his aura becoming more intense, like a predator closing in on its prey. Thud. Li Chuanyuan stumbled, losing his balance and crashing to the floor in a heap, humiliated. Trash will always be trash, Ye Xiaotian said with a cold laugh, ignoring the man on the floor. He turned to the other guards and gave a small salute. So, who's willing to show me the ropes? I'll do it. A tall, broad-shouldered man stepped forward with a friendly grin, walking over to Ye Xiaotian. As for Li Chuanyuan, still lying on the floor, no one bothered to help him. Instead, they shot him disdainful glances. Ye Xiaotian, I'll make you pay. Li Chuanyuan lay on the floor, stunned for a moment. His face reddened with fury, and he quickly grabbed his phone. Yang bro, this is Chuanyuan. I need your help to deal with someone. Don't worry, he's a nobody. Chapter 4, Furious Ouyang Weiwei. Working in our Ouyang group is a very relaxing thing. We get off work at 9 a.m. and leave work at 5 p.m. Every morning, you will be assigned a floor to inspect that day. For the rest of the day, you only need to inspect this floor back and forth. No one will cause trouble here because the quality of the employees who can work here is very high. Because you're new here, according to tradition, you're just going to get familiar with the company today. This is the finance department. People there are a bit rigid, but you can't offend them. After all, they hold our salaries, and these days, money makes you the boss. This is the programming department. I won't say much about the poor IT guys. I'm sure you know what singles are like. Stay away from them to avoid becoming a single yourself. This is a big deal, PR department. Look at that coquettishly twisting waist, the exposed snow-white thighs, and the big breasts that are about to fall out. To be honest, it's a blessing to be on guard here, but it's also a pain. The blessing is that there are so many fair-skinned girls to look at, but the pain is that we are all 20-something men full of vigor and vitality, and we can only look but not have sex. You know the pain. Ye Xiaotian followed the thick-browed, big-eyed, generous man who had stood out earlier, and took a brief tour of the floors of the Ouyang group. His voice never stopped during the tour, and it was obvious that he was a very talkative person, very outgoing. This is the smoking area. If you want to smoke, just come here. If you smoke anywhere else, you will be fined. You lit a cigarette in the security department before. Fortunately, Zhang Peng didn't see it, otherwise he would definitely find fault with you. Walking to a balcony on the top floor, the big man handed Ye Xiaotian a cigarette and said generously, "By the way, my name is Weiwei." "Okay, I got it." Ye Xiaotian smiled and lit a cigarette. The two big smokers looked very cool puffing away. "That Li Changyuan doesn't have much ability, but you'd better be careful. He is very good at flattering people, so his relationship with Zhang Peng." Weiwei stopped talking halfway, and Ye Xiaotian nodded in understanding, but didn't care. "Since I scared him to death once in high school, there will be a second time. If he dares to provoke me, I will beat him up." Ye Xiaotian took a deep puff of his cigarette and said with a smile, "Brother, you are awesome, but you were so good in high school, how come you are in such a mess now?" Weiwei looked puzzled, but seemed to be afraid that Ye Xiaotian would misunderstand him, so he added, "Don't get me wrong, I didn't say you are doing badly now, I just think that compared to your brilliant achievements in high school. Do you know Ouyang Weiwei?" Ye Xiaotian waved his hand to interrupt Weiwei and asked directly. "Of course I know. Who working at Ouyang Group doesn't know President Ouyang? She's no longer a goddess, she's the queen." Weiwei had a fanatical look on his face, as if he had seen God, which made Ye Xiaotian feel a chill in his heart. "I didn't realize that my cold and indifferent wife actually has quite a high reputation in the company. President Ouyang is very beautiful and has a perfect figure. The most important thing is her aura. Anyone who dares to go against her in the group is definitely tired of living. I still remember when President Ouyang first came to the group, because some people questioned her ability, she kept going against her at work. As a result, all these people were fired that day." Weiwei's mouth was like a floodgate that had been opened, and he kept talking. His fanatical expression made him look like the most loyal follower. Ye Xiaotian wanted to speak several times, but was forced to shut up under the other party's continuous words. Fortunately, after a while, Weiwei noticed Ye Xiaotian's helpless face and quickly stopped talking. "Sorry, brother, the main reason is that President Ouyang is too awesome. By the way, why did you mention President Ouyang? I was asking why you came here to be a security guard. Do you want to hear the truth or a lie?" Ye Xiaotian reached out and touched his nose, then said, "Of course it's true." Weiwei said without thinking, "The queen you mentioned just now personally invited me to be a security guard. She was the kind of person who would cry, make a scene, or even threaten to commit suicide if I didn't come. You know that men should be more generous. Although the job of security guard doesn't match my handsome and elegant temperament, I came here reluctantly to prevent Ouyang Weiwei from committing suicide." Alas! Ye Xiaotian sighed and looked very distressed, but Weiwei in front of him said, "Although you are serious, I just don't believe it. You..." He was about to speak, but when he saw a group of people walking over from not far away, and the one leading them was Ouyang Weiwei with a cold and delicate face, he immediately shut up and winked at Ye Xiaotian in front of him. "Why, you don't believe it? It's no use blinking at me. Although Ouyang Weiwei is cold in the company, ask her if she dares to fart in front of me. If I tell her to go east, she has to go east. If she dares to put on a bad face in front of me, I will beat her to death. She is a woman, she doesn't know how to be gentle, virtuous, polite, and obedient at all. If you ask me, Minister Dong is better. I think her temper." Ye Xiaotian kept talking, but then he saw Weiwei in front of him no longer dared to look up, and beads of sweat the size of beans were dripping from his forehead. "Are you hot? Why are you sweating so quickly? I guess it's because the air conditioning is set a little high. I have to talk to that girl Ouyang Weiwei about this. They are such a big group, but they are so stingy with the electricity bill." Ye Xiaotian kept calling her that girl, but after he finished speaking, he felt that something was wrong around him. First, the atmosphere around was very quiet, and then, from somewhere behind him, there was a cold air and an extremely strong murderous aura. Ahem. Ye Xiaotian's mind was working quickly. He glanced quickly at the respectful faces of the people not far away, and then a guess emerged in his mind. Could it be, it's not such a coincidence, but this is the top floor, and Ouyang Weiwei's office is on this floor. Har ha har har, actually I was just kidding you. What kind of person is President Ouyang? She is wise and brave, and her demeanor is extraordinary. She is definitely a female hero that appears only once in thousands of years. Ye Xiaotian said a series of words of praise, and then turned around inadvertently. That must be President Ouyang. She is indeed extraordinary. I think a man who can become her husband must be very great. Okay, let's go down quickly. We still have to go to work. As the security guards of the group, we must do our duty. Ye Xiaotian had a serious face, and then pulled Huang and left directly. Ouyang Weiwei looked at his leaving back, gritting her teeth, a look of exasperation on her pretty face. Saying she's a sissy. And saying the man who could become her husband must be a very tall man? Shameless guy, if not. Ouyang Weiwei had a cold and delicate face, and she was filled with murderous aura, which made the group of senior executives following behind her become more cautious after looking at each other, for fear that they would be fired by accident. Chapter 5: Buyers and Sellers Payment. When he returned to the security department, Huang was completely convinced by Ye Xiaotian. Brother Yi, I will call you like this from now on, and no one can persuade you otherwise. You are so awesome. You actually dare to speak like that in front of President Ouyang. You are simply awesome to the extreme. Huang pulled Ye Xiaotian's arm, his eyes flashing with admiration. He was quite impressed by Ye Xiaotian's behavior on the top floor just now. HMPH, you're just a security guard and you think you're so arrogant. Li Changyuan, who was sitting not far away, snorted coldly. You flatterer, if you say one more word, do you believe I will beat you? Huang said fiercely, causing Li Changyuan's face to change slightly. He muttered that he would not bother with you, then got up and left. However, the hatred in his eyes for Ye Xiaotian became deeper and deeper. Ye Xiaotian, just wait and see after get off work, Brother Yang is the leader of a pretty big underworld force here. He. Ye Xiaotian naturally felt the hateful look in his eyes, but he didn't care. Instead, he pulled his arm out of Huang's hand with force. Such a big and burly man, but he insisted on hugging his arm and acting like a little bird, which made him feel a little disgusted. Aren't you afraid that he will complain and then you will be fired? You just said that Captain Zhang has a good relationship with him. Ye Xiaotian changed the subject and moved his body at the same time. Let him sue. Although he has a good relationship with Captain Zhang, my cousin is. Huang was about to speak subconsciously, but he stopped halfway and happened to meet Ye Xiaotian's mischievous eyes. Brother Yi, I can't tell you who my cousin is, because she will really beat me. Huang's thick eyebrows and big face were wrinkled, and he was obviously very afraid of the cousin he was talking about. It was really a waste for him to have such a big and strong body. Okay, I don't want to know either. Patting Huang on the shoulder, Ye Xiaotian continued to follow him to familiarize himself with what the Ouyang Group security guards had to do. In a blink of an eye, it was 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Before leaving get off work, Ye Xiaotian received a security uniform. After all, the Ouyang Group was wealthy, so the security uniforms of the Ouyang Group were all black, matched with boots, which was very impressive. Especially after Ye Xiaotian put them on, it really lived up to the old saying that Buddha relies on gold ornaments, and people rely on clothes. The security uniform with black lines was perfectly set off by Ye Xiaotian. The toughness that emanated from his body made him look very manly. The boots on his feet, coupled with his muscular body that was firm and yet not overly exaggerated, made him far more impactful than some male models in fashion magazines. Brother Yi, you are going too far. This is clearly the seller's money on Baobao. What should we do with the buyer's money? Huang stood aside, his thick eyebrows and big face showing a distressed look, and his eyes were filled with envy and jealousy. Want to have a body like mine? He glanced at Huang and saw that he was wearing the same black security uniform, but it was bulging like a bear. He couldn't help but smile. Of course I do. Brother Yi, do you have any solution? Huang's eyes lit up, like a puppy smelling a bone. Of course there is, as long as you insist on running 30 kilometers every morning, doing 2,000 push-ups, 5,000 pull-ups, and at the same time practicing close combat. Ye Xiaotian was interrupted by Huang with a bitter look on his face before he could finish his words. Brother Yi, please stop making fun of me. If I really exercise like you do, no, even if I reduce the amount of exercise by 1/10, I don't believe anyone can stick to it. Har, let's go, it's time to get off work. Ye Xiaotian smiled. No one could hold on. He exercises much more every day, otherwise he really thinks that the title of the Vanguard King, the bravest of the 3 armies, is for nothing. He really thinks that the mixed feelings of fear and respect from various countries towards him are just random. It is the result of the sweat and blood that have flowed from the body for countless days and nights. And as he walked along, there were already piles of bones under his feet. When passing by the office of the Minister of Information Department, Ye Xiaotian paused, because through the gap of the office door, he caught a glimpse of Dong Shui who was working inside. She had black and shiny hair draped over her shoulders, and her gentle and virtuous face was full of seriousness. At the same time, her beautiful eyebrows were slightly frowned, as if she had encountered some difficulties at work. Before he could take a closer look, he was hurriedly dragged away by Huang'an. "Brother Yi, don't stand here at the door, go away." Huang'an's face with thick eyebrows and big eyes changed slightly, as if there was some ferocious beast in the office. "Are you afraid of Minister Dong?" Ye Xiaotian asked, somewhat puzzled. In his opinion, Dong Shui's personality and temperament were the most typical girl from the south of the Yangtze River, and she was very easy to get along with. "No, I'm afraid of, what is Minister Dong doing?" Huang'an shook his head like a rattle and dragged Ye Xiaotian downstairs. The little stumble on his mouth did not attract Ye Xiaotian's attention. After leaving the group's gate, Huang'an was originally planning to treat everyone to a meal, but he received a phone call. After expressing his apologies, he left first. Ye Xiaotian didn't care either. He lit a cigarette and walked leisurely. But before he had even walked down the street, he was stopped by a few bitches who had colorfully dyed hair and tattoos of dragons and tigers on their bodies. They looked like young men from society but were actually non-mainstream. "Are you Ye Xiaotian?" The leader, who had green hair and a bowl cut, tilted his head back and snorted coldly. "No." Ye Xiaotian said simply, looking at the gangster in front of him, grinning. "Hey? Do you have a girlfriend?" "Of course not. Why are you asking this?" "You are not Ye Xiaotian." The green-haired pot-lid thug said subconsciously, and then turned his head with some doubts. "Is the person in the photo him?" "That should be it. Even though he's wearing different clothes, the face matches." "Yes, it is." A few thugs who followed him held their cell phones and gestured in front of Ye Xiaotian for a long time, then nodded in affirmation. "That's right. If you still want to get away with it, forget it. Let's go to the alley behind and teach him a lesson." The green-haired gangster had an arrogant expression and then took Ye Xiaotian to an alley behind. Many people noticed this scene, but no one dared to step forward and speak. The indifference of human beings in modern society was vividly displayed at this moment. However, Ye Xiaotian had an indifferent attitude. He just looked at the green-haired gangster and smiled even happier. "What are you laughing at? Do you know that you are about to be in big trouble? Our boss is Brother Yang. Today I want one of your legs. Do you want to take it off yourself or let us do it for you?" Looking at Ye Xiaotian with a smile on his face, the green-haired gangster said angrily. "Dude, your girlfriend must have been cheating on you, right? Otherwise, why would you be cuckolded?" Ye Xiaotian laughed loudly, but what he said made the green-haired, pot-cut gangster in front of him stunned for a moment, and his face suddenly turned pale. "Go," he waved his hand and shouted angrily. Chapter 6 Ouyang Baby. A few thugs who followed him surrounded Ye Xiaotian with a wave of their hands, and then their expressions flashed with cruel smiles. Bullying ordinary people is their specialty, and seeing emotions such as fear and terror appear on other people's faces also makes them feel very refreshed. As for the green-haired hoodlum, he retreated to the side with a sullen face and hatred in his eyes. No one knew that his girlfriend had really cheated on him, and his green hair was dyed before, and now that Ye Xiaotian said that, he became particularly angry and ashamed. "Not only will I take away one of your legs, I will also cripple your tongue," he said viciously in his heart, and several thugs had already waved their fists and came to Ye Xiaotian, ready to hit him. Not to mention that because there were so many people, they made a lot of noise, and they looked very powerful for a while. Ye Xiaotian didn't move at all. He naturally wouldn't be nervous or anything because of a few rotten fish and shrimps in front of him. If he told others about it, he would be laughed at. But in the eyes of a few thugs, they thought he was so scared that he didn't dare to move. What a waste! They cursed inwardly, and their faces became more ferocious. Just when these fists were about to fall on Ye Xiaotian, a woman's light shout suddenly came from the entrance of the alley. "It's broad daylight, what are you doing? Stop it!" As the light shout came, the woman also ran over, then stood in front of Ye Xiaotian, protecting him behind her, glaring at the gangsters. Oh, they're really a people who are not afraid of death and dare to meddle in other people's business. "You are," the green-haired gangster squeezed forward with a sneer on his lips, but his eyes widened halfway through his words, and a stream of saliva flowed from the corner of his mouth, looking like a safety pig. The thugs who came with him were not much better than him. They all stood there in a daze, just looking at the woman standing in front of them and swallowing their saliva. "Oh, what's wrong with these stupid dogs? Have they never seen a woman? Looking at the strange expressions of the gangsters, Ye Xiaotian said helplessly, but when the woman in front of him turned around, he finally understood the reason. The baby face is as white and tender as porcelain, as if water would drip out if pinched, while the flaxen short hair gives it a heart-moving feel. She was a little petite, wearing a camouflage uniform. The clothes were supposed to be loose, but they were stretched tight by her huge chest. People couldn't help but worry that one of the buttons would burst, revealing a large area of white softness. Absolutely baby-faced. The cute baby face and the huge soft chest formed a landscape painting with strong contrast, and also gave her a touch of wildness. Even Ye Xiaotian felt a burning sensation in his lower abdomen after taking a look at her, and then the simplest and most direct idea popped up in his mind. Conquer her and make her beg for sex under you. You are wearing the security uniform of the Ouyang group, so you must be a security guard of the group. You look well dressed and muscular, but how can a grown man like you be scared by them and dare not move? Luckily, my Ouyang baby saw it today, otherwise you would have been beaten. But now, I will take care of it for you. Ouyang Baobao's porcelain-like baby face was full of disappointment. She stretched out her little hand and patted Ye Xiaotian's shoulder. She was obviously only 18 or 19 years old, but the tone she used was particularly mature, giving people a feeling of being both amused and helpless, but making her even more adorable. Oh! Ye Xiaotian was stunned, then reached out and touched his nose. It turned out that he didn't move at all just now. Was he thought by the child-faced giant in front of him that he was scared and dared not to move? What kind of joke is this? You guys, you are so young, why don't you do something else? You have to be a gangster and try to beat others in broad daylight. Since I saw it, I will never let you go. I will send you to the police station. Ouyang Baobao's baby face was serious, and he shouted loudly. But his eyes flashed with excitement. By coming to my sister's company, I can not only lend a helping hand but also catch the bad guys. It turns out that I, Ouyang Baobao, am a woman born to accomplish great deeds. Is this girl okay? Ye Xiaotian rolled his eyes as he looked at Ouyang Baobao, who was eager to try, and thought to himself, are girls with big breasts really brainless? Send to the police station. It's not fun there. Why don't I take you to play on the bed? I will definitely make you feel so comfortable that you won't want to leave. What do you think? The green-haired gangster finally reacted at this time. There was a lustful light in his eyes and his mouth was even more obscene. That's right, let's take you out to play. The few thugs who followed also spoke up. It is obvious that Ouyang Baobao has a baby face but a very hot body, especially her huge and soft breasts. Her attraction to the gangsters in front of them is unparalleled. You are looking for death? Ouyang Baobao's cute baby face turned serious. He took a step forward and slapped the green-haired gangster in the face. Clap. The applause was crisp and loud. You dare to hit me? Go ahead, catch her for me. After I'm done having fun, I'll let you guys have fun too. The green-haired gangster covered half of his face and waved his hand in frustration. As soon as he said this, his subordinates began to breathe heavier. After looking at each other, they all rushed towards Ouyang baby. Fuck you. Today, I, Ouyang Baobao, will enforce justice. Seeing several thugs rushing over, Ouyang Baobao was not afraid at all. Instead, her eyes became more and more excited. She shouted softly and rushed forward. There was a lot of crackling noise, and he got into a fight with a few thugs. Ye Xiaotian reached out and touched his nose. What was going on? Aren't these thugs in front of him looking for trouble? Suppressing his inner thoughts, he looked towards the battlefield, and suddenly a hint of surprise flashed in his eyes, because Ouyang Baobao's skills were actually quite good. She was able to handle several thugs with ease and even had the upper hand. If given some more time, they would all be knocked down by her. No wonder he dared to rush forward, it turns out he is quite capable. But judging from his moves, they should be the fighting skills learned from the police academy. Is he a policeman? No, that shouldn't be the case. He looks like a student from the police academy. After observing him for a while, Ye Xiaotian guessed that it was Ouyang Baobao. At this time, several hooligans were about to be knocked to the ground by Ouyang Baobao. But then an unexpected situation happened. A bunch of trash, let me do it. Seeing that his men couldn't even control a woman, the green-haired gangster standing aside growled, took out a shining dagger, and rushed towards Ouyang Baobao. Several men quickly moved away, and then the green-haired gangster came in front of Ouyang Baobao with a dagger. Although she was quite skilled, she had probably never been pointed at with a dagger before, so a look of panic flashed across her face, and then she stood there in a daze, unable to move, her head just a mess. Is my baby Ouyang going to die here today? I wanted to make a great contribution so that my sister and family would look at me with new eyes, but it's over. She was thinking in her mind, and the green-haired gangster's eyes were full of lust, and he was even looking at the fair baby face in front of him, thinking about what posture to use next. But he was so excited that he didn't notice Ye Xiaotian standing beside him shaking his head and smiling helplessly, thinking to himself that he was indeed a child who had never seen the world. He could be so scared by a dagger. Then he turned over a 1 yuan coin in his palm, and then shook his wrist. The 1 yuan coin instantly shot out and hit the green-haired gangster's dagger. A huge force like a mountain came out, causing pain in his palm, and then he subconsciously let go, and the dagger slipped from his hand and fell to the ground. There was a crisp clang, and he lost his balance and sat down on the ground. The situation turned around so quickly that no one except Ye Xiaotian could react. What's going on? The green-haired gangster looked confused, and Ouyang baby was even more dumbfounded, but then her cute baby face was filled with anger. You are so brave to point a dagger at me. And you dare to look at me like that. I will make sure you can't be a man. As she spoke, she raised her foot and kicked the green-haired gangster in the crotch. R. The green-haired gangster's crotch contracted, his body convulsed, and the immense pain made his eyes roll back. When Ye Xiaotian looked at the green-haired gangster's painful expression, and then at Ouyang baby who had a pure and cute face like an angel, he felt his crotch a little tight. Chapter 7 Heading to the Villa. Behave yourself, or you'll lose the stuff in your crotches. Ouyang Baobao got a rope from somewhere and tied up several thugs together, threatening them while tying them up. Combined with the green-haired gangster next to him who was still screaming and covering his crotch with his hands, the lethality of this threat was unparalleled. Therefore, the other gangsters were terrified and dared not breathe, for fear that they would lose their vital organs in their crotches if they were not careful. Ye Xiaotian stood beside them with some cold sweat on his forehead. To be honest, he felt a little nervous at the moment. I really didn't expect that Ouyang baby's action just now was so decisive. He directly kicked the green-haired gangster in the crotch. Okay, now I've done a good deed. Ouyang baby clapped his hands, and his cute baby face was full of excitement, but Ye Xiaotian's eyes unconsciously glanced at his chest. I saw the huge soft thing tremble violently because of the clapping action. The waves are surging, and some of the tender white is vaguely visible. What big breasts! Ye Xiaotian swallowed his saliva in his heart. To be honest, these were definitely the biggest breasts he had ever seen. The key was that combined with Ouyang Baobao's angelic baby face, the impact was huge. This is the temper that makes you kick someone in the crotch if you don't agree with something. Ye Xiaotian, who was immersed in the beautiful scenery, was suddenly patted on the shoulder. When he came to his senses, he found Ouyang Baobao standing in front of him. Ahem. Ye Xiaotian immediately took a step back. Are you scared? Don't worry, I'm here, I'm not afraid of any monsters. But as a security guard of the Ouyang group, you're so timid. Forget it, I'll protect you from now on. Ouyang Baobao looked at Ye Xiaotian with dissatisfaction at first, then she waved her fair and tender little hand with great passion and a bit of the authority of a big sister. But her cute baby face instantly turned this power into cuteness. Ye Xiaotian didn't say anything, but there were a few black lines on his forehead. You're still protecting me. If I hadn't helped you with the coin just now, you might have been in the hospital now. What's your name? Ouyang baby blinked his big, mischievous eyes and tried to look dignified. Ye Xiaotian. Ye Xiaotian? Okay, I get it. If anyone messes with you in the Ouyang group in the future, I will protect you. Baby Ouyang looked at Ye Xiaotian and said that she was the youngest in the family, so she was the most favored. Now she could be the big sister, which made her very excited. Therefore, the huge softness on the chest was shaking more and more violently, and the already tight camouflage uniform could hardly cover it, making people worry that the buttons would burst, revealing a large area of white softness. Gulp. Ye Xiaotian swallowed his saliva again. Because he was looking down from a high position, he saw a small part of the round and tender skin, and immediately he felt a little angry. After chatting with Ouyang Baobao for a few more sentences, Ye Xiaotian left on the pretext of having something to do. Jokingly, although she has big breasts and a loli-like face, she looks even more conquered in camouflage clothes. But he couldn't bear it if someone kicked him in the crotch for no reason. Hey? I haven't told you my name yet. Never mind. Anyway, I know you're the security guard at my sister's company. Your name is Ye Xiaotian. He, I finally have a little brother. Looking at Ye Xiaotian's departing back, Ouyang Baby chuckled, but when he looked at the gangsters again, his cute baby face was full of murderous intent. Hey, Sister Han, I have a few terrorists here. I have subdued them. Please come quickly. The situation is urgent. Ouyang Baobao took out her cell phone and made a call, but just listening to what she said, the thugs almost fainted from fright. They are not terrorists. We just followed the boss's orders and wanted to teach someone a lesson. The word terrorist has nothing to do with it. Mom, we want to go home. Several thugs had despair on their faces. They just looked at Ouyang Baby but did not dare to say anything, because the green-haired thug who was still screaming next to them clearly told them what terrible consequences would happen if they angered the baby-faced woman in front of them. Goodbye, my little house. Ye Xiaotian was carrying a huge woven bag and looking at the shabby hut in front of him with tears in his eyes. If possible, he didn't want to leave here at all, but there are no IFS in this world. He is going to move into Ouyang Weiwei's villa today. This is a requirement in the contract. He must live in the villa for the next month. Jiancheng Mingyuan Villa District, the name sounds very high-end and classy. Taking out his mobile phone and looking at the address on it, Ye Xiaotian turned around and headed to Mingyuan Villa District with his huge woven bag. After changing 5 buses and a total of 2 hours of travel, Ye Xiaotian finally stood at the gate of Mingyuan Villa District. The gate is very majestic. It is all white like white marble. There are 2 stone lions on both sides of the gate, their eyes wide open and vivid. Beyond the gate, you can see the towering trees, wide and neat sidewalks, and neatly arranged villas in the community. The scenery is elegant and beautiful, and there are several burly men standing at the door, giving people a very safe feeling. Ye Xiaotian withdrew his gaze, but there was no shock on his face. After all, he had even lived in the British royal palace. Although the villa community in front of him was quite good, it was still a little inferior to the royal palace. Suppressing his inner thoughts, Ye Xiaotian was about to enter the community gate, but was stopped. This is not a place you can enter. Wang Gang looked at Ye Xiaotian with disdain and said in a cold voice. When Ye Xiaotian just stood at the door, he and several colleagues became alert. Although his clothes were not tattered, they were wrinkled and had some yellow stains on them. Ye Xiaotian changed his clothes when he was packing up. As for the huge woven bag in his hand, was it a special bag for migrant workers in the last century? The bag was covered with black dirt. People like this must be vigilant. Do you look down on me? Ye Xiaotian frowned. He clearly sensed the contempt and disdain in Wang Gang's eyes and spoke immediately. Of course, someone like you will never be able to step into the gate of such a community even if you work hard for 10 lifetimes. Wang Gang snorted coldly, his eyes becoming even more disdainful. A person like this dares to come to the gate of our community. Doesn't he feel inferior? Don't you see what kind of neighborhood we are in? People like this. Look at the clothes he's wearing, the same as those of the migrant workers in distress, and the woven bag in his hand. The other burly men also started to mock him, but Ye Xiaotian's expression became calmer. He took out his cell phone and called Ouyang Weiwei directly. Chapter 8 Dazzling. There are minor changes to the previous text, so I would like to announce this and hope that everyone will go back and read the first chapter. Here is a simple question: what is love? The sudden ringing of the cell phone made Ouyang Weiwei, who had just finished mopping the floor and was about to take a break, stunned for a moment, then she walked over. Just looking at the number on the phone made Ouyang Weiwei's delicate face look cold. What's up with this guy again? Ouyang Weiwei gritted her teeth. Although she didn't make any notes, she remembered the number very clearly. I wanted to refuse the call, but when I thought about the man's shameless and scoundrel behavior, I took a deep breath and finally answered the call. Wife, please come to the gate of the community quickly. The security guard won't let me in. Hearing the man's words coming from the phone, Ouyang Weiwei's pretty face trembled immediately, and then a strong murderous aura emanated from her. What did you call me? Ouyang Weiwei gritted her teeth as she spoke each word. The word wife was almost challenging her limit of patience. Who would want to be the wife of a guy like you? If it wasn't for the fact that you were drunk and entered the wrong hotel room, I'm warning you, if you dare to call me wife again, I will. Ye Xiaotian interrupted Ouyang Weiwei before she could finish her threatening words. You'll have 10 minutes to come down. If you don't come down by then, I'll leave. After saying this, Ye Xiaotian, who was standing at the gate of the community, hung up the phone. Although he still didn't know why Ouyang Weiwei signed a 1-month marriage agreement with him, and found him a job and let him live in a villa, it did not prevent Ye Xiaotian from using this to control Ouyang Weiwei. What's that tone of yours? Ye Xiaotian, I'm telling you. Hello? Damn it. Ouyang Weiwei's pretty face was covered with frost, the veins on her hand holding the phone were exposed, her plump breasts were trembling slightly, full of temptation. Be patient, be patient. For the sake of the baby in your belly. Ouyang Weiwei calmed down her inner anger, then quickly walked out of the villa and headed towards the entrance of the community. Have you finished your call? Then get out of here quickly. Wang Gang looked at Ye Xiaotian and waved his hand with disgust on his face. Yes, leave now, this is not the place for you. That's right. The other security guards also spoke up and gathered around him while talking. Wang Gang even wanted to push someone away. However, Ye Xiaotian just glanced at Wang Gang lightly, causing him to pause with his hands for a moment, and then he subconsciously took a step back, with sweat breaking out on his forehead. You. Wang Gang's eyes were filled with fear. The look just now made him feel as if he was being stared at by the god of death. The hot summer weather made him feel as if he was in an ice cave. Gongzi, what's wrong with you? Are you okay? Under the questioning of his colleagues, Wang Gang came to his senses and shook his head to indicate that he was fine, but he did not dare to do it again. Moreover, when he looked at Ye Xiaotian again, there was no more disdain in his eyes, but some fear in them. Ye Xiaotian took out a cigarette from his body and time passed by as he puffed out smoke. After smoking most of a cigarette, Ouyang Weiwei finally arrived at the gate of the community. She was wearing home clothes that highlighted her beautiful figure. A white ribbon was tied around her slender waist, which made her look delicate and pure. Her long hair was tied up, looking very capable. Wife, I'm here. Ye Xiaotian immediately waved. Several security guards including Wang Gang immediately turned their heads to look, and when they saw Ouyang Weiwei, they were shocked. Exquisite, noble and cool. Such a woman should only exist in heaven. Wait, this seems to be Ouyang Weiwei. After being shocked for a moment, Wang Gang suddenly realized that he knew Ouyang Weiwei, because Mingyuan Villa community was owned by Ouyang Group. Ouyang Weiwei clenched her fists, her beautiful eyes looking at Ye Xiaotian who was waving at her not far away, and she had the urge to leave immediately. The clothes she wore were wrinkled and stained, and there was a huge migrant worker's woven bag under her feet. All of this made Ouyang Weiwei collapse. You gave your first time to a guy like this? Is it even possible to get pregnant? Wife, come here quickly, these security guards won't let me in. Ye Xiaotian had no idea what Ouyang Weiwei was thinking. He pointed at the security guards and said. This time, when the word, wife, was heard by several security guards, their bodies trembled immediately. The president is this guy's wife? Several security guards looked incredulous, and Ouyang Weiwei came over quickly. Who is your wife? Come in with me. Her pretty face was cold and her voice was filled with murderous intent. She glared at Ye Xiaotian, as if she would die together with him if he dared to speak again. Well, let's go. Ye Xiaotian picked up the huge woven bag next to him. He could see that his contracted wife was very thin-skinned. If he continued talking, she would probably get really angry. It's over, it's over. The president is this man's wife. What should we do now? It may not be my wife. The president just denied it. Even if she's not my wife, the two of them must be related. In all this time, have you ever seen the president pick up a man? This is the first time. What should we do then? What else can we do? We have to stand guard at the door. If that man comes out again, we must ask for his forgiveness. Several security guards had worried looks on their faces. They looked at Ye Xiaotian's receding back and knew that they had underestimated others and had ended up hitting a steel plate. It's just how could the president have anything to do with someone like this? It's unbelievable. Am I staying with you at night? Isn't this moving too fast? I'm not mentally prepared yet. If we really want to sleep together, that's fine, but I have to use condoms. It's good for you. I like banana-flavored condoms. They are very fragrant. What about you? I think. Looking at Ye Xiaotian who was sitting on the sofa and talking incessantly, Ouyang Weiwei's pretty face turned cold to the extreme. Finally, when Ye Xiaotian mentioned condoms, she slapped the coffee table in front of her. Bang! Shut up! Ouyang Weiwei was like an angry lioness. She had grown up in a strict family and had never heard such explicit language. Condoms, banana flavor, these are all challenging their inner limits. What are you doing? You scared me. I'm so unlucky to have a wife like you. Ye Xiaotian opened his eyes wide and then muttered something in dissatisfaction. What did you say? Ouyang Weiwei was filled with murderous intent. Shouldn't she be the one saying this? Who is so unlucky? Nothing. Ye Xiaotian curled his lips. Phew, if I wasn't afraid that the child would be born without a father, I would really want to die together with this hateful man. Take your bag off the sofa. Ouyang Weiwei suppressed her inner anger, but then her beautiful eyes moved, and she immediately had a tendency to go berserk again. Ye Xiaotian's huge migrant worker woven bag was placed on the high-end sofa that she bought at a high price. The woven bag is covered with black dirt, while their high-end sofa is pure white. The interweaving of the two colors is very eye-catching. Chapter 9. God knows how hungry an old woman like you would be. Why? Ye Xiaotian blinked and asked innocently. It would have been fine if he didn't ask, because as soon as he asked, Ouyang Weiwei, who was already angry, instantly went berserk. Tell me why. Look at your bag, and then look at my sofa. Ouyang Weiwei was so angry that her chest was shaking. She paused for a moment before speaking through gritted teeth. Do you think the two go together? Of course it's matched, black and white, what a beautiful color. Weiwei, your husband is not saying anything to you, but you should improve your aesthetic sense. Ye Xiaotian spoke earnestly, and then he saw Ouyang Weiwei stand up and go into the kitchen. Not even angry. Ye Xiaotian felt strange, but then he saw Ouyang Weiwei walking out of the kitchen with a kitchen knife. The kitchen knife flashed with a sharp edge, coupled with the murderous expression on Ouyang Weiwei's delicate face, even Ye Xiaotian couldn't help swallowing his saliva. Weiwei, don't be impulsive. Killing is against the law. Bang! But just as Ye Xiaotian finished his words, Ouyang Weiwei had already wedged the kitchen knife in her hand into the coffee table. Now I'm telling you, listen. If you dare to speak again, I guarantee that this kitchen knife will fall on you. Ouyang Weiwei's tone was cold and serious, and Ye Xiaotian nodded immediately. First, get your bag off the couch. Isn't it good here? Why take it away? You women are troublesome. Ye Xiaotian muttered, but when he saw Ouyang Weiwei's hand reaching for the kitchen knife, he quickly put the bag on the ground. Secondly, you will be living in the villa for the next month, and the room where you sleep is there. Ouyang Weiwei stretched out her hand, and her slender jade fingers pointed towards the first room on the left side of the first floor. Aren't we sleeping together? After all, we are a couple protected by national laws. If we sleep in separate rooms, it would be a disrespect and disapproval of the country, so I think. Ye Xiaotian chattered on and on, while Ouyang Weiwei pulled out the kitchen knife that was wedged into the coffee table with an expressionless face. Okay, I'll sleep there. Ye Xiaotian immediately changed his tone. I really want to kill this shameless guy with one knife. Ouyang Weiwei held the kitchen knife in both hands, her heart filled with murderous intent. It was the first time in the history of Ye Xiaotian that someone could make her, who was always intellectual and noble, so angry. During the month you live here, you are not allowed to touch anything except the things in your room. You are also strictly prohibited from going upstairs. The bathroom is next to your room. Ouyang Weiwei continued talking, and then saw Ye Xiaotian curl his lips, as if to say, even if you beg me, I won't take you up. To be honest, she had the urge to kill the other person at all costs, but fortunately she suppressed the urge in the end. Finally, you can't call me your wife, and you can't expose our relationship in the company. The above requirements are all in the contract. If you violate them, you will pay 10 million renminbi in compensation. After Ouyang Weiwei finished speaking, her pretty face was cold, but her beautiful eyes were a little nervous. She was a little worried that the man in front of her would not agree. But the truth was beyond her expectations. Okay, is there anything else? Ye Xiaotian asked. No more. Ouyang Weiwei shook her head subconsciously. Then I'll go back to my room and sleep. As he said this, Ye Xiaotian was about to go back to his room carrying a huge woven bag. Ouyang Weiwei breathed a sigh of relief. Now, she would use a month to observe what kind of man this was. If he is a very vicious person, then the marriage will be terminated after a month, and she will raise the child independently after the child is born. However, in order to give the child a warm home, it is better not to go to that step. After all, she did not feel the presence of her father when she was a child, so she can't let her child be like this. As for the possibility of aborting the child, she never thought of that. Wait, I have a request here too. At this time Ye Xiaotian suddenly turned around, looked at her and said, "What?" Ouyang Weiwei's pretty face was stunned for a moment. Not to mention, she was breathtakingly beautiful. "You can't come into my room either, especially when I'm taking a shower or using the toilet. Oh yeah, and late at night. God knows how horny an old woman like you would be." After saying this, Ye Xiaotian went straight back to his room. After he closed the door, he heard loud crackling sounds coming from outside. Oh, this woman is just irritable. Shaking his head, Ye Xiaotian glanced around the room. There was a big bed in the middle of the room, with a wardrobe and a computer desk next to it. The floor was spotless and the windows were clean and bright. It's just that the bathroom is outside, which is a bit inconvenient. Ye Xiaotian looked at the time and wanted to go out for a shower, but when he heard the angry noises coming from outside from time to time, he gave up the idea. It's time to go to bed. He threw himself onto the bed. The next morning, his biological clock woke Ye Xiaotian up on time. He got up, brushed his teeth and washed his face, then ran out of the villa. The roads in the community are very wide, with lush trees on both sides. The environment is very good and the air is fresh. There was a pool of clear water next to him, with several red carps swimming back and forth flexibly in it. He ran for more than half an hour. When a little sweat appeared on his body, Ye Xiaotian stopped running and returned to the villa. As soon as he entered the villa, a ostentatious red Ferrari sports car sped past on the road, but then the sports car reversed and the window rolled down, revealing a fairly handsome man's face. "I seem to see a man enter Weiwei's villa, but it must be an illusion. After all, even I have never been able to enter Weiwei's villa." The man shook his head as he spoke, thinking of Ouyang Weiwei's extremely delicate face, with heat in his eyes. "Weiwei, you are mine. I must be the first man to enter your villa." After taking a shower, Ye Xiaotian glanced at the time and found that it was just after 6 in the morning. Because he was a little hungry, he went straight into the kitchen. He completely forgot what Ouyang Weiwei had warned him the night before not to touch anything. But even if he remembered, Ye Xiaotian wouldn't care. Men should do their job, women should stop complaining. There were all the ingredients in the refrigerator. Ye Xiaotian took out tomatoes, onions, eggs, noodles and other things, and then started to get busy. The kitchen knife fell on the chopping board, and a series of clinking sounds were heard, very rhythmic. In a master bedroom upstairs, Ouyang Weiwei tossed and turned on the bed, her pretty face showing fatigue and dark circles around her beautiful eyes, but this did not hinder her noble beauty. She didn't sleep well all night because she felt uncomfortable at the thought of a man coming into the villa, a man who had no good qualities at all. And she knew deep down that even though she had left a way out, it was a foregone conclusion that the man would become her husband. After all, she had barely fallen asleep in the early hours of the morning, but now the clinking sound coming from downstairs woke her up. After being stunned for a few seconds, Ouyang Weiwei finally realized that this must be the noise made by Ye Xiaotian. Hateful. Ouyang Weiwei's pretty face was filled with anger. She went downstairs without thinking, and then saw Ye Xiaotian who was busy in the kitchen. "Who told you to go into the kitchen? Come out now." Although their voice was as sweet as the song of an oriole, it was filled with deep anger. Few people know that Ouyang Weiwei is a germaphobe. She doesn't like others touching her things. But now Ye Xiaotian is busy in her kitchen. Hearing the sound coming from behind, Ye Xiaotian subconsciously turned his head and was about to speak, but swallowed his saliva. Gulp. My contracted wife has a really great figure. Chapter 10, Forced. The silk satin pajamas worn by Ouyang Weiwei perfectly show off her curvy figure. The white and tender swan-like neck, the plump and soft breasts, the flat belly, the slender and beautiful legs, all of these can be clearly felt. More importantly, along with the anger in her heart, Ouyang Weiwei's breasts were shaking violently, and her pajamas were very loose because they were close-fitting. Therefore, from Ye Xiaotian's perspective at this moment, he could see a half-spot of snow-white roundness jumping out easily. White is so touching. Ouyang Weiwei's pretty face was filled with anger, but when she saw Ye Xiaotian didn't say anything, the anger in her heart subsided a little. It seems that I am still very majestic. What are you looking at with your dog eyes? But then, she followed Ye Xiaotian's straight eyes and saw a little bit of her chest exposed, and her pretty face instantly turned red with anger. But besides the anger, there was also a kind of shame and annoyance that was unique to women. After all, family members know their own business, and her breasts have never been seen by any man. See what's going on. I played it a few days ago. Ye Xiaotian muttered, somewhat dissatisfied, you have this thing for people to see, right? Besides, I don't know how I played it half a month ago. However, his words made Ouyang Weiwei want to die together with him. Go to hell. She gritted her teeth, her beautiful eyes were red, and just as she was about to rush over, Ye Xiaotian's words put an end to her thoughts. I advise you to go upstairs and change your clothes first. If you continue like this, I might lose control and force myself on you. Ye Xiaotian said lightly, but Ouyang Weiwei's pretty face changed. She knew her own charm, so she didn't care about fighting anymore and immediately turned around and walked upstairs. Actually, it's okay if she really forced herself on me. After all, we are a couple protected by state law, Weiwei. Ye Xiaotian muttered softly, but his voice was just loud enough for Ouyang Weiwei to hear, causing her to walk faster immediately. And the delicate and pretty face, which was angry before, now turned a little pale, as if she was afraid that Ye Xiaotian would really force herself on her. Har har. Seeing his contract wife quickly going upstairs, Ye Xiaotian laughed heartily and continued cooking, but the image of Ouyang Weiwei's soft and trembling breasts kept replaying in his mind. Hey, why did I get so drunk that night? It would be good if I could sober up a little. Ye Xiaotian said regretfully, but Ouyang Weiwei upstairs had no idea what he was thinking. She just listened to the loud laughter coming from downstairs, her silver teeth chattering. Asshole. When Ouyang Weiwei came downstairs again with a cold face and murderous aura, she was dressed neatly, and Ye Xiaotian was eating noodles at the dining table. The noodles were tomato and egg noodles, with a few juicy tomato petals, a white and yellow poached egg, some chopped green onions, plus sesame oil, vinegar and other condiments, and the aroma wafted out. Ouyang Weiwei, who was originally full of anger and rage, suddenly found that she was a little hungry. Do you want to eat noodles? Ye Xiaotian, who was concentrating on eating noodles, raised his eyes to glance at Ouyang Weiwei and then asked. I don't want to eat it. Ouyang Weiwei said without thinking. Even though she was hungry, she didn't want to eat the noodles made by Ye Xiaotian. Oh. Ye Xiaotian didn't care and continued eating noodles, but his indifferent look almost made Ouyang Weiwei explode with anger. Oh. This guy is not a man. Even though I don't plan to eat, shouldn't he continue to invite me to eat noodles? Ouyang Weiwei's beautiful eyes were spitting fire. She looked at Ye Xiaotian who was concentrating on eating noodles, and she wanted to overturn the table. It's strange to say, but ever since she met Ye Xiaotian, she has become more and more angry, more than ever before. I finally finished eating. I'm full. After about 3 or 5 minutes, Ye Xiaotian put down his bowl and chopsticks, wiped his mouth with his hand, and then burped with satisfaction. Rude. Barbaric. Ouyang Weiwei, who was packing her things, glanced at this scene and snorted coldly. Weiwei, is it time for us to go to work? Ye Xiaotian stood up and said to Ouyang Weiwei. We? Ouyang Weiwei keenly grasped the key words, and then frowned her beautiful eyebrows. Of course, your villa area is a bit far from the company, and you have a car, so let's go together. Ye Xiaotian said directly, but Ouyang Weiwei sneered. Dream. After saying this, she walked straight out of the villa, and then the car started and drove away from the villa. Want to take her car to work? Don't even think about it. Go walk. So stingy. Ye Xiaotian was speechless, but he didn't take it seriously and ran out of the villa. When we arrived at Ouyang Group, it was already 7:30 in the morning. Seeing Ye Xiaotian come in, many people from the security department greeted him. Ye Xiaotian responded one by one. After a glance, he found that Wangan had not arrived yet. Just as he was about to find a place to sit down, he suddenly noticed a resentful gaze looking at him. He turned around and found it was Li Changyuan. After eye contact, Li Changyuan quickly lowered his head and walked out. There's something wrong with this guy. Ye Xiaotian narrowed his eyes. During the eye contact just now, he saw confusion, resentment and a bit of evasion in Li Changyuan's eyes. The gangsters who blocked my door yesterday must have been hired by him. Ye Xiaotian made the final decision. Otherwise, how could he explain that the thugs from yesterday knew what he looked like and his name? It's obviously aimed at him. Looks like I need to give him a beating. There was a cold light flashing in Ye Xiaotian's eyes. Although Li Chuanyuan was just a small character in his eyes, the majesty of a tiger would not allow some reptiles to provoke it at will. Brother Yi, who are you going to hit? Call me, I still have some strength. The sudden and loud voice brought Ye Xiaotian back to his senses. He looked up and found that it was Huang who arrived. Brother Yi, are you going to criticize Li Chuanyuan? If you have something to say, just tell me. I have disliked him for a long time. Huang suddenly lowered his voice while speaking. Brother Yi, be careful. When I came in just now, I heard Li Chuanyuan talking on the phone and mentioned you. You have pointy ears, but it's okay. Ye Xiaotian said with a smile, but he didn't care. Huang was a little anxious when he saw this, but he didn't know what to say. He could only decide in his heart that if Ye Xiaotian had any problems, he must help. Because after he returned home last night, his cousin actually called him for the first time and asked about Ye Xiaotian's performance. This made Huang feel surprised and he became curious about Ye Xiaotian. However, he didn't think that his cousin had a crush on Ye Xiaotian. After all, the status between the two was very high. It's almost time to go to work. Let's go and change into uniforms. Ye Xiaotian patted Huang's shoulder and went into the locker room. Chapter 11 The Smile of Death. Brother Yang, I'll leave it to you. Don't worry, I will definitely not let your trip be in vain. At the door, Li Chuanyuan had a flattering smile on his face, then hung up the phone with a look of resentment in his eyes. He asked how Ye Xiaotian came to work today unscathed. It turned out that he was unlucky yesterday. Brother Yang's men met a police academy intern with good skills, which allowed Ye Xiaotian to escape. But he had already made the call, and Brother Yang's men came over immediately. I don't believe you'll have any luck this time. Li Chuanyuan's face turned fierce. He felt humiliated when he thought about how Ye Xiaotian had scared him to the point of peeing his pants in high school. About 7 or 8 minutes later, Li Chuanyuan's cell phone rang. After he answered it and listened to their voice coming from the other end, a look of joy appeared on his face. Okay, I'll ask him to go out with me now. After saying this, Li Chuanyuan turned and walked into the security department. At this time, Ye Xiaotian had already changed into his security uniform. The black, well-proportioned security uniform on him revealed his masculine toughness. Many security guards surrounded him with envy and jealousy on their faces. Li Chuanyuan looked at the scene and couldn't help but snorted coldly, but he didn't show it. He walked up to Ye Xiaotian and called out. Ye Xiaotian, come with me. No. Ye Xiaotian refused without even thinking about it. You actually said you won't go. Li Chuanyuan seemed to have not expected to be rejected, so there was some disbelief on his face. Ye Xiaotian glanced at him and was too lazy to talk to him. It's really tiring to just look at this kind of small character. The captain told me yesterday to take you with me. Why don't you even listen to the captain? Feeling the disdain in Ye Xiaotian's eyes, Li Chuanyuan's eyes became even more resentful, but after taking a deep breath, he brought out the security team leader Zhang Peng. There was nothing wrong with what he said. Yesterday, Zhang Peng did ask Ye Xiaotian to follow Li Chuanyuan to learn about what to pay attention to within the group. Don't use the captain to scare people. The captain said that Brother Yi should follow you, but you gave up yesterday. Huang stood up and spoke directly. You? Li Chuanyuan was angry and was about to speak, but Ye Xiaotian spoke first. Okay, the captain did ask me to follow him, let's go, I'll go out with you. Ye Xiaotian waved his hand and then spoke to Li Chuanyuan. Really? Let's go. Li Chuanyuan was a little bit unbelieving, but afraid that Ye Xiaotian would go back on his word, so he hurried towards the door. Brother Yi, why are you? Huang was anxious. He was sure that Li Chuanyuan had no good intentions in asking Ye Xiaotian to go out. The other security guards also signaled Ye Xiaotian with their eyes. Although they had just started to get along with each other, they all felt that Ye Xiaotian was much better than Li Chuanyuan. Don't worry, it's okay. Ye Xiaotian said to everyone and followed Li Chuanyuan out. Hey, Xiaotian is still too young. Li Chuanyuan clearly has bad intentions. It would be good for the young man to learn a lesson. The security guards shook their heads and sighed, while Huang stood aside, feeling a little disappointed. He didn't know why Ye Xiaotian insisted on going out with Li Chuanyuan. Wasn't it obvious that he was being plotted against? When Huang An heard that Li Chuanyuan had contacts with some people in society, his expression changed. After a moment, he gritted his teeth and followed him out. Who made my cousin seem to be paying attention to Brother Yi? Besides, Brother Yi is a really good person. Ye Xiaotian naturally knew that Li Chuanyuan asked him to go out with bad intentions, but the question was, would he be afraid? Innocent. Looking at Li Chuanyuan, who had a smug look on his face, Ye Xiaotian reached out and touched his nose. The reason why an ant is that it does not know how big the sky outside is or how fierce the beasts are. The two men walked out of the Ouyang group and walked a few hundred meters until they came to an alley, where Li Chuanyuan stopped first. Ye Xiaotian, if you surrender now and call me Brother Yuan, I will spare you. Li Chuanyuan put his hands behind his back and spoke with disdain, looking at Ye Xiaotian as if he were a dead person. Ye Xiaotian was speechless. I'll count to 3 seconds. If 3 seconds pass, you'll be living a fate worse than death. 1. Li Chuanyuan continued speaking but was interrupted by Ye Xiaotian. No need to count. You have to be sincere in your apology and shout louder, Brother Yuan, do you understand? Li Chuanyuan thought that Ye Xiaotian was going to surrender, and there was a morbid pleasure in his eyes. But just as he finished speaking, a foot suddenly landed on his chest. Bang! Then the whole person was kicked to the ground and fell flat on his face. The huge force remaining in his chest made Li Chuanyuan feel extremely painful even when he breathed. If I really call you Brother Yuan, would you dare to agree? Glancing at Li Chuanyuan, who had a painful expression, Ye Xiaotian looked directly into the depths of the alley. Come out, everyone. As Ye Xiaotian finished his words, 2 sturdy adult men in their 30s walked out of the alley. He has a crew cut and looks like someone who is not someone you would mess with. He is a so-called social person, and he is not comparable to those non-mainstream people from yesterday. Hit him, for me. Li Chuanyuan felt a huge pain in his chest, but the hatred in his eyes became deeper and deeper. He pointed at Ye Xiaotian and said directly. Being kicked to the ground before reminded him of his high school life, but he was obviously much stronger than Ye Xiaotian now. He doesn't accept it. Superior. The 2 burly gangsters looked at each other and swung their fists at Ye Xiaotian. There was no pattern in the beating, but one hit the head and the other hit the ribs, and the force was extremely strong. If it were an ordinary person, he would have fallen to the ground immediately. But facing the attacks from the 2, Ye Xiaotian did not move an inch. Just when the 2 social men were sighing that it was so easy to make money this time and the hatred in Li Chuanyuan's eyes was about to be released, an accident happened. Ye Xiaotian made a quick move and collided his fists with those of the 2 gangsters. In an instant, the bodies of the 2 social men flew backwards like kites with broken strings, and then hit the wall. With a puff sound, they spat out blood from their mouths. The sudden change made Li Chuanyuan, who had a resentful look on his face, stunned for a moment. He couldn't believe that the plan he had carefully planned was broken just like that. It simply didn't take even a second from beginning to end. Don't mess with me, or you'll regret it. This is the last time. Ye Xiaotian smiled at the stunned Li Chuanyuan. It was a very gentle and mellow smile, but in Li Chuanyuan's eyes, it made him shiver all over. The devil's smile. The smile of death. Without paying attention to Li Chuanyuan's reaction, Ye Xiaotian stretched his body and left. But before leaving, he looked at one place. This Huang An is quite loyal, not bad. Chapter 12 Awesome, my brother Yi. Gulp. Huang An's face was filled with shock and he swallowed several times, but this did not calm him down at all. On the contrary, his eyes were full of excitement and disbelief. What did he just see? Under the fierce attack of 2 burly men, Ye Xiaotian just threw a punch to collide head-on, and then the 2 men flew backwards and vomited blood. If he hadn't been there from beginning to end, he would have really thought this was a TV drama. Incredible. Could Brother Yi be the legendary martial arts master? He's so awesome. Huang An's face was excited, and the lightning-fast scene kept replaying in his head. It took him a long time to calm down. Then he took out his cell phone and made a call. Hey, sis, that's awesome, so awesome. What did you say? In the office, Dong Shui, who received a call from Huang An, frowned slightly, and her gentle and virtuous face changed a little. Have I been too nice to my cousin recently? Dong Shui couldn't help but think about it, and Huang An also realized that there was something wrong with what he said, and hurriedly made amends. Sister, listen to me, didn't you ask me to pay more attention to Ye Xiaotian? No, Brother Yi, I just saw something amazing. As he spoke, Huang became excited again. The scene just now had a great impact on him. Which man doesn't he have a martial arts dream of striking out with one punch and making the enemy unable to retreat? What's the matter? Dong Shui noticed the change in Huang's way of addressing Ye Xiaotian, and her heart moved, and then she asked. Just now. Huang excitedly repeated the previous scene. After he finished speaking, Dong Shui was stunned for a moment, then spoke. Okay, I understand. After hanging up the phone, Dong Shui sat in the office in a daze. She was wearing a light grey professional suit today. She was full of intellectuality but also a little charming. The beautiful body with a protruding front and a curved back, which is enough to make a man's blood boil, is faintly visible under the professional OL suit. But Dong Shui's pretty face was gentle and virtuous, and the relative shock came inexplicably. Just one punch, and he knocked two grown men away. It sounds like something out of a movie. I guess it's exaggerated. Shaking her head, Dong Shui chose to suppress the news and not report it to the president. The reason why she asked Huang to pay attention to Ye Xiaotian was naturally because of the task assigned by Ouyang Weiwei. Of course, this was also due to her curiosity about Ye Xiaotian. The essence of men, aunt. Dong Shui suddenly spoke, and then her pretty face turned red. After spitting lightly, she continued to work. Not long after Ye Xiaotian returned to the security department, Huang came in, and as soon as he came in, he came to Ye Xiaotian and asked about his well-being. At the same time, the expression on his face and the gaze in his eyes were all filled with fanaticism and respect. Brother Yi, would you like some water? Brother Yi, would you like something to eat? Brother Yi, you. There were quite a few people in the security department at this moment, and they looked at Huang, who was trying to be frantically attentive, with strange eyes. They felt like the sun was rising from the west. Everyone knows that Huang is a generous and straightforward person. He even scolded the team leader Zhang Peng. But now he is caring about Ye Xiaotian and even flattering him. What on earth happened? No one understood it in their hearts, but Ye Xiaotian naturally understood it thoroughly, but he didn't point it out clearly. He just stretched out his leg and kicked Huang, cursing with a smile. Stop disgusting me here and go away. Okay, Brother Yi. Huang was not angry, but instead had a smile on his face, and even had a bit of an attitude of Brother Yi kicked me, I'm honored, which made everyone puzzled again. More than 10 minutes later, Li Chuanyuan came in. He was pale, walked slowly, and had one hand covering his chest. After coming in, he didn't even dare to look at Ye Xiaotian, and went straight into the captain's office. After a moment, he took a leave note and left. He wants to go to the hospital because he has severe chest pain. Ye Xiaotian glanced at Li Chuanyuan's back and said nothing. To him, this was just a small role, but if it happened again, he would definitely make him regret it. The dignity of a tiger cannot be challenged. Ye Xiaotian suddenly burst out with a fierce aura, and all the security guards felt a chill and were very surprised. After all, it was a hot summer day. Only Huang was standing aside, looking at Ye Xiaotian with an increasingly excited look. Awesome, my brother Yi. When it was almost 8 o'clock in the morning, security team leader Zhang Peng walked out of the office, announced today's guard assignments, and waved his hand for everyone to go to work. Ye Xiaotian was assigned to the 16th floor. When the other security guards heard this assignment, they immediately looked at him with envy, jealousy, hatred, and sympathy. What's going on? Envy, jealousy, hatred, and sympathy don't seem to be the same thing, right? Ye Xiaotian was very puzzled, but then Huang solved this question for him. Brother Yi, the 16th floor is where the company's public relations department is located. Although the women there are very beautiful and dressed provocatively, you can only look and not touch them. It's so hot in this weather, it's easy to get angry. Huang also looked at Ye Xiaotian with some sympathy. What am I doing? It's okay. I'm going to stand guard. Ye Xiaotian waved his hand indifferently, and then walked towards the elevator. PR department, here I come. Ye Xiaotian smiled. He passed by the public relations department yesterday. Although he just took a quick glance, the white thighs and the soft chests that fluttered in front of him made him feel a little excited. I can take a closer look today. Hey! Did you know that there's a new security guard in the company? He's very handsome and manly, and he's on guard on our floor now. Really? Is that true? Of course it's true. Xiaofang and the others just went over to watch. He's really strong. I never knew that the company's security uniforms could be so good looking. In the public relations department on the 16th floor, such discussions suddenly increased, and then one after another, beautiful urban women dressed in fashionable clothes either walked out or looked out of the windows. And when they saw Ye Xiaotian standing guard, their beautiful eyes lit up. Ye Xiaotian has an extremely well-proportioned body. He doesn't have the exaggerated figure of a fitness coach, but he is not too thin either. Everything is just right. The well-fitting and slender black security uniform seemed to be tailor-made for Ye Xiaotian. He stood there with his body straight as a javelin. Better than all the male models in magazines nowadays. Wow 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 wow. At this moment, the beautiful single female white-collar workers of marriageable age in the public relations department were instantly excited. This is my dish. Don't compete with me. For a moment, the 16th floor was filled with smoke. Chapter 13, Surrounded by Beauty. Ye Xiaotian was unaware of the sudden strong smell of gunpowder on the 16th floor. He was only immersed in the land of gentleness at the moment. Several beautifully dressed female white-collar workers from the public relations department were surrounding him and kept talking to him. Brother Yi, do you think my clothes are too small? I feel a little tight and uncomfortable. A woman with a huge chest and wearing a low-cut dress bent her slender waist while talking, and a large area of her white, tender and soft body caught Ye Xiaotian's eyes. Gulp. Not small at all, this is just right. Ye Xiaotian swallowed his saliva, and then said seriously, it's healthier to squeeze it. Really? Then I'll wear it like this from now on. The woman's face was full of joy. She bent her waist even more, revealing more of the soft white area on her chest. At the same time, she cast a provocative look around her. Did you see that? Brother Yi's eyes widened. Brother Yi, these are the new pants I bought. Do you think they fit? Immediately a woman was dissatisfied and stood up and said coquettishly to Ye Xiaotian. Ye Xiaotian looked over and couldn't help swallowing again. The woman who was speaking had a thin waist and long legs. She was wearing a pair of denim shorts, which highlighted her long legs, which were slender, white and tender. To be frank, with these legs, she could play with him for a whole year. It fits. Ye Xiaotian said without hesitation. Really? But I always feel that the fabric of these pants is not good. How about you touch it, Brother Yi? The woman walked closer to Ye Xiaotian, her voice becoming more and more charming, but when these words came out, the faces of the people around her changed slightly. This is unfair competition. Isn't this a bad idea? Ye Xiaotian was already tempted, but he pretended to be hesitant. There's nothing wrong with it, come here, Brother Yi. As the woman spoke, she actually grabbed Ye Xiaotian's hand and placed it on her denim shorts. Wow. The denim shorts were very short, so most of Ye Xiaotian's hands were placed on the exposed thighs, feeling the unique cool and elasticity on them. Ye Xiaotian couldn't help but exclaim in his heart, what great legs! The woman in denim shorts had pink cheeks, and the warmth from her legs made her heart palpitate. She was about to speak, but was interrupted by a voice next to her. Brother Yi, my belt seems to be untied. Please help me tie it again, said a woman with a slender waist that could be grasped with one hand. She was wearing a short-sleeved shirt, revealing her flat and smooth belly. Okay. Ye Xiaotian felt that helping others was a fine tradition of the Chinese nation, so he nodded immediately. However, just as he was about to extend his hand, he was hugged by a pair of arms. At the same time, a soft ball comes directly to you. Brother Yi, I'm a little tired. Can I lean on you for a while? Just for a while. Along with this coquettish voice, a woman with well-developed breasts almost hung on Ye Xiaotian, not caring at all as she wrapped her breasts tightly around Ye Xiaotian's arms. Maybe this is exactly what she wanted. Brother Yi. The other women were not to be outdone and began to show off their best parts while casting provocative glances at the others. The scene was tense for a while, but Ye Xiaotian, who was at the center of the situation, was feeling very happy at the moment. This is the life a man should have. I will definitely be the security guard. Ye Xiaotian thought firmly in his heart, and then reached out to help a girl adjust her bra. In the process, he inevitably touched some softness, which touched his heart. Brother Yi, you are so nice. If my bra gets crooked next time, I will come to you again. The girl thanked him repeatedly and at the same time gave Ye Xiaotian a charming glance. Okay. Ye Xiaotian nodded seriously. The corner where Ye Xiaotian was standing guard suddenly became the center of the 16th floor, and the movement here was naturally quickly noticed by other security guards, who immediately stared with their eyes wide open. We are all security guards, but why are there so many differences between us? I tried my best to find a female white-collar worker in the group, but no one paid attention to me. But Brother Yi was surrounded by enthusiasm. I want to go home to find my mother. It turns out that being a security guard has a future, provided you become Ye Xiaotian. The security guards have walkie-talkies, which are convenient for passing messages, and at this moment it becomes a tool for them to express their inner envy, jealousy and hatred. What are you talking about? Just get back to work. If you don't want to work anymore, just go home. The intercom rang again, but this time it was the voice of Security Captain Zhang Peng. Cut. All the security guards sighed in their hearts, but no longer communicated through the intercom. They just glanced at the 16th floor from time to time with jealous and eager eyes. It was obvious that they wanted to be Ye Xiaotian if possible. This Ye Xiaotian, I'll adjust his position at noon. Zhang Peng sat in the office, looking at the computer monitor in front of him, with some jealousy in his eyes. As the security captain, he has never received such treatment. However, he didn't expect that Ye Xiaotian, who was dressed shabbily yesterday, would have such a big change after putting on the security uniform. HMPH, you're just a mediocre girl. Wait until I catch up with Minister Dong. Zhang Peng's tone was sour, but then he thought of Dong Shue's gentle and virtuous face, and her extremely hot body, and a hint of heat flashed in his eyes. In the president's office, Ouyang Weiwei put down the materials in her hands. Her delicate face looked a little tired, but this did not hinder her noble temperament and powerful aura. He stretched out his hand and pressed his temples a few times, then picked up the cup and took a sip of coffee. Standing up from the chair, Ouyang Weiwei walked to the floor-to-ceiling window in the office, intending to take a look at the work situation of the employees in the group. From her floor-to-ceiling window, she can see the entire picture of the company. It is precisely because of this that the employees of Ouyang Group are very serious during working hours. Because they all know that the president might notice them at any time. Ouyang Weiwei was as usual, with her beautiful and majestic eyes, looking back and forth in the company like a tiger patrolling its territory. After a moment she nodded with satisfaction. Not bad, everyone is very serious and energetic. Just as she was about to turn around and continue working, Ouyang Weiwei's beautiful eyes suddenly swept to the 16th floor. When she saw Ye Xiaotian surrounded by many beautiful white-collar workers, with his hands extremely inappropriate, and even reaching out to help an employee adjust her bra. Almost instantly, her pretty face was covered with frost and she spoke in an icy voice. Is this guy using me as his harem? Ouyang Weiwei's pretty face was covered with frost, and her heart was cold to the extreme. Deng deng. Wearing high heels, she called her secretary and gave an order, ask Ye Xiaotian from the security team to come to my office, immediately. Yes. On the phone, the secretary was stunned for a few seconds before quickly responding. Ouyang Weiwei sat back in her chair, but there was a murderous aura coming from her body. This time, she will definitely not let Ye Xiaotian go. Chapter 14 I Smoke for a Reason. Huang An ran to the 16th floor and saw Ye Xiaotian surrounded by beautiful girls from close range. His tone was sour and full of jealousy. Brother Yi is so lucky. In this situation, Huang An only regretted that he was not Ye Xiaotian and could not deeply feel the comfort of being surrounded by women. Brother Yi, come here quickly. Fortunately, he did not forget the important matter and waved to Ye Xiaotian across the crowd. It's not that he didn't want to get closer, it's just that he couldn't squeeze in. Never underestimate the fighting power of women. What's the matter? Ye Xiaotian walked over with the gait of a dragon and a tiger, looking at Huang An with unfriendly eyes, as if he would cut him into pieces if Huang An couldn't explain himself. Brother Yi, don't look at me like that. I don't want to disturb you. Huang An felt his heart tighten when being stared at by Ye Xiaotian with unfriendly eyes, and then he said in a flattering manner. After a pause, he continued, the president's office just called and asked you to go to the president's office immediately. As he spoke, there was still a strong curiosity in Huang An's eyes. The president's office was still very mysterious to him. But now Ye Xiaotian was summoned directly. Okay, I got it. Ye Xiaotian was a little surprised when he heard that. He didn't know why his contracted wife suddenly called him, but then nodded to show that he understood. Brother Yi, you'd better hurry up and go over. The person on the phone asked you to come over right away. Huang An said, he always felt that Ye Xiaotian didn't care much about this matter. That won't work. I still have a post to serve here. Wait until I finish this shift. Ye Xiaotian said directly, and then turned around to continue standing guard. According to regulations, each shift is 2 hours. Are you kidding me? You said you want to see me. Do you have any idea that your husband is your god? Wait. Ye Xiaotian was thinking in his mind, and didn't notice Wang behind him, with a look of horror on his face. Yi, brother Yi, you. He couldn't even utter a complete sentence. In Ouyang group, Ouyang Weiwei is the queen. A single word can determine the future of thousands of employees. She is strict in her approach but refined and noble in her personality. Everyone is in awe and admiration of her. But now, it seems like someone has stood him up. Awesome, you are worthy of being brother Yi. Huang'an couldn't help but sigh, but after thinking about it, he quickly grabbed Ye Xiaotian. Brother Yi, isn't it just standing guard? I'll stand guard for you. You can go to the president's office now. Huang'an's eyes were shining with excitement, and if you didn't know, you would think he was going to the president's office. Oh. Ye Xiaotian was helpless. It turned out that Huang'an pushed him into the elevator while talking. Well, let's see what she wants to talk to me about. The elevator door closed, and Ye Xiaotian reached out and touched his nose. The president's office is on the top floor and is very conspicuous. In addition, Ye Xiaotian had been here once, so he arrived at the office door very familiarly. Without knocking, he just pushed the door open and walked in. Honey, here I come. As he was speaking, Ye Xiaotian saw Ouyang Weiwei sitting behind the desk, and a look of surprise flashed across his eyes. The pure white sleeveless top revealed 2 jade-like arms, which were now resting on her chest, making her plump and soft breasts seem to have become a little bigger. A light green silk scarf was tied around her neck, which made her pretty face look even fairer and more delicate, and her noble and elegant look became even more profound. Her lower body couldn't be seen because it was blocked by the desk, but what was visible was enough to amaze countless men. It's really worth it to have had sex with a woman like this, but it's a pity that I can't remember anything, Ye Xiaotian thought to himself, but Ouyang Weiwei's pretty face became colder again, and she slapped her hand directly on the table. Bang! Ye Xiaotian, what did you call me? Ouyang Weiwei glared at Ye Xiaotian with her beautiful eyes. She was already furious inside, and after hearing the word honey, she was about to explode. Honey. President. Ye Xiaotian blurted out, but seeing that Ouyang Weiwei's face looked really bad, he changed his words. Come here, I have something to tell you. Ouyang Weiwei suppressed her anger and spoke coldly. But after glancing at Ye Xiaotian, she was also a little surprised. Ye Xiaotian, wearing the security uniform, was completely different from the one she saw yesterday. It would not be an exaggeration to say that he looked brand new. What's the matter? Ye Xiaotian walked over, pulled out a chair and sat down, then took out a cigarette from his trouser pocket and lit it. He spoke while puffing out smoke. The whole process was completed in the blink of an eye, and Ouyang Weiwei was stunned. After a moment, an angry blush appeared on her delicate face, and her eyes were full of murderous intent. The slight subtle good impression that had arisen in his heart because of Ye Xiaotian's current outfit disappeared completely at this moment. Sure enough, this guy is as hateful, casual, and a bastard as always. Who told you to sit down? And who told you to smoke here? Ouyang Weiwei gritted her teeth and spoke word by word with an icy tone. Who doesn't know that her office is non-smoking? Who doesn't know that she hates the smell of cigarettes? Are you standing instead of sitting down? As for smoking, you can't blame me. Ye Xiaotian said this and took another puff, but his words made Ouyang Weiwei even more murderous. Are you blaming me? Of course I don't blame you. Ye Xiaotian spoke without waiting for Ouyang Weiwei to speak. Speaking of smoking, my grandfather smoked, my father smoked, and I can't let the tradition be broken, so I have to smoke too, it's that simple. Ye Xiaotian said it calmly, but Ouyang Weiwei's breasts suddenly trembled twice, and the waves were surging. It was all because of anger. What kind of inheritance is this? Scoundrel. I didn't ask you that. Put out your cigarette now. Ouyang Weiwei's pretty face was cold and her tone was stern. If someone else were here, they would probably be terrified immediately. But Ye Xiaotian looked at her indifferently, took another puff, and then spoke in a lecturing tone. Weiwei, I'm not saying anything bad about you. Although our family has such a big company now, we still have to be frugal. Do you know how much a cigarette costs? You have to treasure it. Ye Xiaotian spoke earnestly, flicking the ash from his cigarette as he spoke. When the bluish-white ash fell from the sky and landed on the precious and clean carpet in the office, Ouyang Weiwei exploded. Chapter 15: Ouyang Weiwei's Determination. Bang! Bang! The drawer opened and closed, and Ouyang Weiwei had a pair of sharp scissors in her hand, flashing a cold light. Put out the cigarette. Her pretty face was flushed with anger, and her eyes were filled with the determination to die together. She gritted her teeth and spoke word by word. God knows how devastated she felt when she saw the ashes falling on the carpet. Be good, stop making trouble and put down the scissors. Ye Xiaotian frowned and then spoke. Who messed with you? Shame on you. Put out the cigarette. Ouyang Weiwei spoke again, and the hand holding the scissors rushed straight towards Ye Xiaotian. The murderous intent flashing in her beautiful eyes was almost tangible. Okay. Pursing his lips, Ye Xiaotian pulled the ashtray on the table, put the cigarette in it, and muttered softly. Not allowing smoking when there is an ashtray, what a mistake. Even though she spoke quietly, Ouyang Weiwei happened to hear it, and her plump breasts began to tremble again. Since there is an ashtray, why don't you flick the ash into it? Do you know how expensive and difficult to clean the carpet in my office is? Ouyang Weiwei was filled with anger, but she suppressed it because she knew that if she argued with this extremely hateful man, she would be the one who would suffer. Standing up from her seat, she walked to the window and opened it. The smoke slowly drifted out, which made her pretty face turn from cloudy to sunny. But at this moment, she suddenly felt a hot and direct gaze staring at her buttocks, which made her feel a little uncomfortable. She turned her head and found that the source of this gaze was Ye Xiaotian. What are you looking at? Ouyang Weiwei quickly turned around, her pretty face filled with anger. The naked and direct gaze she had just received was unacceptable to her, as if her whole body was exposed in front of Ye Xiaotian. Of course I was looking. Never mind, I didn't see anything. Ye Xiaotian waved his hand, but his eyes still glanced at Ouyang Weiwei's lower body. The narrow black skirt not only highlights her slender waist, but also covers her firm, perky and plump buttocks, which is very tempting and makes people want to take a picture of it. Ye Xiaotian was attracted over there just now, and apart from these, Ouyang Weiwei's pair of long legs could also be described as a gift from heaven and earth. If you gain a point, you will look fatter, and if you lose a point, you will look thinner. They are white as if they were watered with milk, slender and straight. Ye Xiaotian's gaze was direct and fiery. Ouyang Weiwei was defeated and hurried back to her seat. With the shelter of the desk, she finally calmed down. But in his heart, he couldn't help but feel a bit disgusted with Ye Xiaotian. I want to talk to you about something. Ouyang Weiwei said with a cold and delicate face and an emotionless voice. Well, you say. Ye Xiaotian nodded lazily, crossing his legs and swinging them back and forth. This behavior made Ouyang Weiwei immediately angry again, but she suppressed her anger and then spoke. I hope you can respect yourself during work hours. What are you talking about? Don't I have any self-respect? Ye Xiaotian stared and said. You must apologize to me. What you just said caused me a severe mental and physical blow. Touching the thighs of company employees and adjusting their bras, is this considered self-respect? Ouyang Weiwei ignored Ye Xiaotian's words and slammed the table as she spoke. Ye Xiaotian, don't go too far. This is my company, not your harem. Ahem. Listening to Ouyang Weiwei's words, Ye Xiaotian felt a little embarrassed. He didn't expect to be caught red-handed. Weiwei, you don't know the details. I didn't touch the employee's thigh. I felt the fabric of his pants. As for the bra, that's nonsense. You must have seen it wrong. Ye Xiaotian had a righteous look on his face, but his words almost made Ouyang Weiwei laugh. Feel the fabric of the pants? Take her for a fool. I'm too lazy to argue with you. If you continue to behave like this during work, you will be transferred from your current position. Ouyang Weiwei said in a cold tone. Where will I be transferred? Ye Xiaotian didn't care about the threat, but was curious about where he would go next if he was transferred. Har har, cleaner. Ouyang Weiwei sneered and continued. Ye Xiaotian immediately jumped up from his chair. Don't even think about it. You don't put a man as outstanding as me in the position of CEO of the company, but let me be a cleaner. You damn old woman, you. Ye Xiaotian looked indignant, and Ouyang Weiwei's face looked ugly. Dead old woman. If you continue talking, report to the cleaning department immediately. Ouyang Weiwei spoke, and the chattering Ye Xiaotian instantly shut up. You are so cruel. He raised his middle finger. You are now a company security guard, and I hope you can do your job well. Okay, you can leave now. Ouyang Weiwei waved her hand. She felt very happy inside when she saw Ye Xiaotian being humiliated. Come to think of it, this seemed to be the first time she had a slight advantage in her confrontation with this scoundrel and extremely hateful man. If I hadn't had to pay 10 million for breach of contract, I would definitely not continue to stay here. Ye Xiaotian muttered something, then walked towards the door, only pausing when opening it. Weiwei, come to think of it, the reason you asked me to respect myself at work, aren't you jealous? If you are jealous, just say it, after all, I am so outstanding. But you can't be like this, you need to be more open-minded. Before he could finish his words, he saw a water cup thrown at him. In ancient times, people like you who murdered their husbands would be thrown into a pig cage. Women are indeed the most vicious. Ye Xiaotian opened the door instantly and ran out just as the cup was about to hit him. Click. The cup hit the door and broke into pieces. What a pity to waste such a nice cup. Jealous? Dream on. Ouyang Weiwei said, gritting her teeth. Just thinking about the scene where Ye Xiaotian was surrounded by beautiful girls, she felt a little upset. Although she now hates Ye Xiaotian very much and thinks that this man is useless, lazy and abominable, she really gave her first time to him. And now she is pregnant. As long as Ye Xiaotian does not do anything extremely evil within the next month, she will definitely become husband and wife with Ye Xiaotian. Therefore, seeing Ye Xiaotian being so close to other women, she felt really uncomfortable. But, to spend a lifetime with a man like this is a nightmare just thinking about it. Ouyang Weiwei had a bitter smile on her pretty face. Although she had signed a contract to be on the safe side and could terminate the marriage after a month, she didn't want to do that deep down in her heart. Because she doesn't want her child to be fatherless. I hope that in this month, you won't do anything that really challenges my limits. Otherwise, I can only tell the child that he has no father. There was a low murmur in the office, very pleasant to hear, but with a resolute tone. Chapter 16 Han Yu. I am only taking you in out of mercy. Otherwise, with your temper, who would dare to take you in? You are so cold and unfeminine. Ye Xiaotian said to the president's office behind him, and then returned to the 16th floor, only to see Huang standing guard in an orderly manner, but the beauties from the PR department who had originally gathered here were all gone. Brother Yi. Seeing Ye Xiaotian, Huang waved hurriedly with a depressed look on his face. What's wrong? Ye Xiaotian walked over and said. Brother Yi, as soon as I stood here, all the white-collar workers who had surrounded you left. Am I that unpopular? Huang became even more depressed, and Ye Xiaotian laughed and patted his shoulder. This is the difference between you and me. It's not that you are unpopular, but that I am too popular. Huang curled his lips at this and wanted to refute, but thinking of his previous stern attitude, he swallowed the words that were about to come out of his mouth. I'm not bragging. I just regret that I don't have Brother Yi's amazing body. Okay, let's go. It's my turn to stand guard. Ye Xiaotian waved his hand, but Huang did not leave. Instead, he came closer and asked curiously. Brother Yi, can you tell me what you did in the president's office? The curiosity on Huang's face was about to turn into reality, because in the hearts of all the employees of Ouyang Group, the president's office was a holy place in their hearts. Want to know? Ye Xiaotian raised his eyebrows and then said. Of course. Huang said impatiently. I'm a little tired, so I'm standing guard. Ye Xiaotian didn't finish his words, and Huang added tactfully after hearing what he said. I'll take the next position for Brother Yi. Young man, you have a bright future ahead of you. Ye Xiaotian patted Huang's shoulder in appreciation, and then said directly under the other's eager gaze. Ouyang Weiwei is jealous and told me to stay away from other women during work. Alas, it is a sin for a man to be too outstanding. Forget it, let me experience this sin alone. Having said that, Ye Xiaotian waved his hand desolately and left. But behind him, Huang jumped up from his place after a brief daze, with gritted teeth on his face. Brother Yi, you are so dishonest. You actually lied to me. Huang naturally didn't believe it. Although he admired Ye Xiaotian very much after seeing his superb skills, he didn't believe that Ouyang Weiwei would be jealous of him. After all, he is the president. Today, the people are so happy. Ye Xiaotian was humming a song, feeling very happy. What is happiness? Having someone stand guard for you is the greatest happiness. However, when passing by Dong Shui's office, Ye Xiaotian paused while humming a song and frowned, because there was some sound of dispute coming from inside. Han Yu, please get out. Xiaoxue, this is not nice. We are so familiar with each other, don't you invite me to sit down and have a cup of tea. Are you going out or not? You can go out, but you have to promise to have dinner with me tonight. I've prepared a candlelight dinner for you. Don't even think about it. The sound was not loud, but Ye Xiaotian had very sharp hearing, so he heard it clearly and immediately raised his eyebrows. He was very familiar with the woman's voice, Dong Shui's, but the man's voice was a little feminine. Just listening to it made him feel uncomfortable and goosebumps appeared on his body. Without hesitation, Ye Xiaotian pushed the door and walked into Dong Shui's office. Minister Dong, you just called to ask me to move something, right? What did you move? As he spoke, Ye Xiaotian looked up and glanced at the office. It was well decorated, elegant and grand. There were 2 pots of roses on the windowsill, adding a touch of gentleness. Seeing Ye Xiaotian suddenly push the door open, Dong Shui was stunned for a moment. When did she call to ask them to move things? But she thought quickly and knew that Ye Xiaotian was here to help her out, so she gave him a grateful look. Well, move the bookshelf in my office. She spoke, and Ye Xiaotian responded directly, and then walked towards the bookshelf. But as soon as he took a step, he was stopped by a man. The man was in his 30s, handsome and well dressed, but his aura was a little feminine, and there was a hint of hostility in the look he gave Ye Xiaotian. Who are you? Who let you in? Han Yu looked unhappy. He was just about to strike while the iron was hot and invite Dong Shui to dinner together in the evening. As long as she agreed, he would be sure to accomplish a good thing, but now someone had disrupted his plans. Oh, I'm from the security department, Ye Xiaotian was about to speak when Dong Shui spoke. I asked him to come. Do you have any objection? Dong Shui's gentle and lovely face was cold at this moment. She had long been disgusted with Han Yu. If his father was not a director of the company, she would have spoken harshly to him. Of course not, but I think the bookshelf can be moved anytime, so please leave first. Minister Dong and I have something important to discuss. Han Yu smiled at Dong Shui, then turned around and waved condescendingly at Ye Xiaotian. He was arrogant and didn't take Ye Xiaotian seriously at all. When Dong Shui heard this, her pretty face immediately became a little angry, but before she could say anything, Ye Xiaotian spoke directly. Please move aside. A good dog doesn't block the road. Looking at Han Yu, who was standing in front of him with a look of arrogance and disdain, Ye Xiaotian's tone was not polite at all. Why are you acting so high and mighty in front of me? What did you say? Han Yu said in disbelief. He suspected that there was something wrong with his hearing. Dong Shui on the side laughed out loud, and the smile on her pretty face was bright and beautiful, but then she thought of Han Yu's identity and became a little nervous again. Boy, do you know who I am? How dare you talk to me like that? Seeing Dong Shui laughing, Han Yu felt angry and took it all out on Ye Xiaotian. What is your identity? Ye Xiaotian asked indifferently. My father Han Qian is the director of Ouyang Group. If you still want to continue working here, you'd better apologize to me and get out immediately. Han Yu had a grim look on his face. It was the first time since he was a child that he was compared to a dog, especially in front of Dong Shui, whom he had been pursuing for a long time. It was very humiliating. Even if the other party apologizes and gets out, he can forget about working in Ouyang Group. Han Yu, don't go too far. This is my office. Besides, I asked him to come here to move things. You should be the one to leave. Dong Shui stood up, her pretty face full of coldness, and spoke aggressively. She felt a little guilty. If she hadn't been unable to hold back her laughter just now, Han Yu wouldn't have been so angry with Ye Xiaotian. However, why did I feel so good when I heard Ye Xiaotian say that Han Yu was a dog? Chapter 17 is things moving too fast. Xiaoxue, you asked me to leave just for a security guard. Han Yu looked grim and said directly to Dong Shui. Please call me Dong Shui, or call me Minister Dong. Dong Shui's pretty face was cold, and her words showed her attitude. Good, really good. Han Yu's face turned fierce, and then he turned his head to look at Ye Xiaotian. Are you going to leave or not? The voice was harsh and the eyes were full of warning. What are you doing? Dong Shui asked angrily. She could naturally see that Han Yu was putting pressure on Ye Xiaotian. And once Ye Xiaotian really went out, she was afraid that Han Yu would continue to harass her. Han Yu did not say anything, but the warning in his eyes intensified. He was confident that Ye Xiaotian would definitely get out. After all, he just revealed his identity. Dong Shue's pretty face changed slightly, and she was a little worried that Ye Xiaotian would be forced to go out under pressure, but at this time Ye Xiaotian spoke. Minister Dong, where should the bookshelf be moved? Ye Xiaotian walked to the bookshelf and then said to Dong Shue with a smile. He looked relaxed and did not even glance at Han Yu during the entire process, ignoring him to the extreme. Dong Shue suddenly felt relieved, but Han Yu next to her looked as ugly as if his father had died. How dare you ignore me? You? As he spoke, Han Yu took a step forward. Angered and humiliated by being ignored, he actually planned to take action. But Ye Xiaotian just glanced at him lightly. I advise you not to touch me. His tone was calm, but his right arm was slightly raised, and his muscles as hard as rock were instantly highlighted. Swish! Han Yu's face immediately turned ugly. He paused and did not dare to move forward. Okay, you're from the security department, right? Wait and see. Han Yu was too embarrassed to stay here anymore, and he walked out of the office with a sullen face, but his final words clearly showed that he would not let it go. TSK. Ye Xiaotian curled his lips. He hated these second-generation rich people the most. They had no skills at all, but relied on their parents to show off their power. But when they really encountered problems, they were all cowards. Thank you so much this time. Dong Shue closed the office door, then walked up to Ye Xiaotian and said sincerely. She hated Han Yu very much, but because of his identity, she couldn't do anything too embarrassing. But what Ye Xiaotian had done before made her feel very vented. What are you thanking me for? Ye Xiaotian waved his hand, but his eyes moved several times. He thought that he had helped Dong Shue, but he didn't know whether she would return her love to him. She is gentle and virtuous, obviously much better than the cold type of Ouyang Weiwei. But if you do this, Han Yu will not let it go. His father, Han Qian, is the director of the company, so you. Dong Shue said worriedly, but was interrupted before she could finish her words. It's okay, he can't touch me. Ye Xiaotian said confidently. Doesn't he have any backing? His wife is the real owner of Ouyang Group. Who is afraid of who when it comes to background? Oh. Dong Shue was stunned for a moment, but then she thought of what Ouyang Weiwei had told her, and she had an idea in her mind. Yes, the president and Ye Xiaotian must know each other, otherwise he wouldn't let me look at each other. Do you have time in the evening? After figuring this out, Dong Shue felt relieved and then suddenly asked. What? Ye Xiaotian's face turned strange when he heard this. Was this development too fast? But, I just like this tune. Don't think too much. I just want to treat you to dinner to thank you for helping me out earlier. When Dong Shue met Ye Xiaotian's strange eyes, she realized that there was something wrong with what she had just asked. Her pretty face suddenly turned red and she quickly made amends. So it's just a dinner invitation. Ye Xiaotian curled his lips and muttered to himself, well, it was all in vain. Dong Shue was standing aside, her pretty face turned even redder, and her beautiful eyes showed a hint of embarrassment. What else was she doing? Okay, I'll give you a chance to treat me to a meal. Ye Xiaotian said, and then quickly walked out of the office. He was craving for a cigarette, and he only took a puff at Ouyang Weiwei's place just now. Huh. Seeing Ye Xiaotian leaving quickly, Dong Shue's gentle and pretty face was stunned at first, and then she gritted her teeth. He walked away so quickly, did he think she was a monster? Also, does this guy know that he has never taken the initiative to invite a man to dinner? He actually said to give himself a chance. After finishing a cigarette, Ye Xiaotian returned to the security department. The security guards who were taking a break were surprised to see him come back, but after asking around, they all gave Ye Xiaotian a thumbs up. Being able to let Wang take over the guard duty is awesome, that's incredible. Thank you, brothers. Ye Xiaotian waved his hand modestly, then sat in the corner and played with his mobile phone. Being a security guard in Ouyang Group is very easy. I stand guard for 2 hours in the morning and 1 hour in the afternoon, and the rest of the time I rest in the security department where there are computers. We had lunch in the cafeteria of Ouyang Group. The food was very rich. Huang said that this was one of the reasons why others were scrambling to come to Ouyang Group. Brother Yi, just tell me, what on earth did you do in the president's office? Huang's resentful expression made Ye Xiaotian immediately want to kick him away. Dead glass. Didn't I tell you? Ouyang Weiwei was jealous and told me to stay away from other women. Ye Xiaotian moved to the side without leaving a trace, and then spoke. Brother Yi, do you believe this? Forget it, I won't ask any more. Huang An said with a hurt look on his face. It was unusual for a burly man to have such an expression. No, why don't I believe it? It's the absolute truth. Ye Xiaotian was speechless. He wanted to say a few more words, but finally stopped. He could only sigh that these days no one believes the truth, but many people believe lies. People's hearts are no longer the same as they used to be. The day passed quickly, and when it was almost time to get off work, Ye Xiaotian was about to change clothes with Huang An when security team leader Zhang Peng walked out of the office. Ye Xiaotian, wait a minute. Zhang Peng spoke, and Ye Xiaotian was stunned for a moment, but still stopped. The other idle security guards looked over curiously, wondering what Zhang Peng wanted to say that he suddenly called Ye Xiaotian. Get ready, you're on duty tonight. Hearing this, the other security guards were a little surprised, but then they looked at Ye Xiaotian with some sympathy. Did this offend the captain? Captain, Brother Yi just joined the company today. According to regulations, he does not need to work overtime in the first month except for normal guard duty. Huang An stepped forward and said, this regulation does exist, it is an adaptation period. Ye Xiaotian narrowed his eyes. Is this directed at him? What rule? I said, let him be on duty tonight. Zhang Peng glanced at Huang An, then looked at Ye Xiaotian and said directly. Did you hear me? Go get ready. You're on duty tonight. As he spoke, a hint of pride flashed in Zhang Peng's eyes. You've been in the spotlight this morning, so this is a small punishment for you. In the security team, I am the only one who can stand out. Huang An gritted his teeth and prepared to speak again, but then Ye Xiaotian spoke. Yes, I heard it. Hearing this, Huang An turned his head in disbelief, and then his heart was filled with disappointment. And the pride in Zhang Peng's eyes grew more and more. But I'm sorry, I'm not planning on being on duty at night. The corner of Ye Xiaotian's mouth curled up, his voice was calm but contained sarcasm. Chapter 18 Dong Shui arrives. It was so quiet in the security department that one could hear a pin drop. Looking at Ye Xiaotian, who was standing there with a calm expression, everyone looked at him with some disbelief, suspecting that there was something wrong with their hearing. He actually dared to mock the captain, isn't he too brave? Okay, this is Brother Yi. Huang An, on the other hand, clenched his fists tightly, and said excitedly in his heart that the disappointment that had surged up before had completely faded away at this moment. What did you say? Aren't you going to be on duty at night? Zhang Peng's face was gloomy, and he spoke word by word. The more proud he was before, the more angry he was now. Yes, I'm sorry. Ye Xiaotian nodded. Although he said sorry, even a blind man could see that he was not embarrassed. Bang! Zhang Peng raised his hand and slapped the table next to him. The legs of the table began to tremble immediately. If it weren't for their high quality, it would have fallen apart immediately. The security department became increasingly quiet, even the breathing became much lighter, for fear of angering Zhang Peng at the moment. But the corners of Ye Xiaotian's mouth rose again, his face became calmer, and he didn't take it seriously at all. But he was wondering in his heart why Zhang Peng targeted him. Is it because of Han Yu? That's possible. Ye Xiaotian was thinking in his mind, but he was overthinking. Zhang Peng and Han Yu did not get along well. After all, both of them wanted to pursue Dong Shui. The reason they targeted him this time was just because he had attracted attention on the 16th floor in the morning. Of course, it's not Ye Xiaotian's fault for guessing wrong. Who would have thought that Zhang Peng was so narrow-minded? Are you on duty tonight? Think about it before you speak. In a rage, Zhang Peng spoke directly, his tone full of threats. The other security guards looked at Ye Xiaotian with some sympathy. A few of them signaled to Ye Xiaotian with their eyes that he should agree. After all, when you live under someone's roof, you have to bow your head. However, under these gazes, Ye Xiaotian simply shook his head. I have something to do tonight, so I can't be on duty. Alas, if you don't know how to adapt, don't know the overall situation, and contradict your boss, you will obviously end up in trouble. Many security guards thought to themselves, and Zhang Peng saw that Ye Xiaotian still refused at this moment, and the nameless fire in his heart continued to surge, and finally reached a critical point. No matter how big the problem is, you have to put it aside. I'm putting this on hold. You must be on duty tonight, otherwise you'll be kicked out of Ouyang Group. These words were full of murderous intent, and combined with Zhang Peng's current angry expression, they were quite powerful. The other security guards sighed in their hearts, thinking that even if Ye Xiaotian survived today, his life would be difficult in the future. How can you have a good life if you offend the captain? Let me get out of Ouyang Group. Are you worthy of that? Ye Xiaotian's face was calm, but he sneered. He was also a little annoyed with Zhang Peng. He had a little power in his hands, but he didn't know what to call his own name. Wow! The security department was in a state of excitement now. Everyone looked shocked and couldn't believe what Ye Xiaotian had just said. Zhang Peng's expression became increasingly grim. He was interrupted just as he was about to speak. If you can really get me out of Ouyang Group, I'd really thank you, but that's impossible, so don't brag. Ye Xiaotian said disdainfully, are you kidding? It was Ouyang Weiwei who asked him to come in. Anyone who wants him to get out has to get through Ouyang Weiwei. And it is obvious that no one can leave before the end of the month in the contract. Okay, this is what you said. Facing Ye Xiaotian's disdainful gaze, Zhang Peng became more and more angry, and was about to take out his cell phone to make a call, but at this moment, a gentle but slightly cold voice came directly over. That's enough. Along with their voice, Dong Shui came over. Her pretty face was gentle but a little cold at the moment. Her body was hot and curvy, but at the moment, due to her aura, no one dared to look her up and down. Minister, why are you here? Seeing Dong Shui coming over, Zhang Peng's eyes lit up instantly, and then he suddenly pointed at Ye Xiaotian. Minister, this Ye Xiaotian is too arrogant and presumptuous. I arranged for him to be on duty at night, but he actually said that he had something else to do. What could be more important than being on duty? Besides, who knows where he might go to fool around at night? This is just an excuse. So, Minister, we should expel this kind of unruly person as soon as possible, so that he won't. Zhang Peng spoke very quickly with a gloomy look in his eyes. At the same time, he was very confident that after he finished speaking, Ye Xiaotian would definitely be fired. After all, who doesn't he know that Dong Shui hates people who don't follow the rules the most? He was so immersed in gloom and self-confidence that he did not notice Ye Xiaotian's slightly strange look not far away, and Dong Shui's increasingly cold face beside him. Shut up! Dong Shui interrupted directly with a cold voice. Minister. Zhang Peng wanted to speak, but Dong Shui looked at him and said. He did have something to do in the evening. I was the one who found him. Do you have any questions? Dong Shui's voice was extremely cold, and there was a hint of anger on her gentle and pretty face. Fooling around. Does this mean she's not a good woman? Swish. Dong Shui's words immediately caused a stir in the security department. Oh my god, is that so? The situation immediately reversed. After a brief pause, Zhang Peng broke out in a cold sweat. He knew that there was something wrong with what he had just said. Minister, please listen to my explanation. That's not what I meant. Zhang Peng spoke anxiously, trying to make amends, but Dong Shui just looked at him coldly and then waved her hand. Ye Xiaotian is new here. According to regulations, he has a 1-month adaptation period. Apart from standing guard, he doesn't have to do anything else. So why did you arrange for him to be on duty at night? Dong Shui spoke. Although she had a gentle face, she also had a strong side to her character, otherwise she wouldn't have been able to reach her current high position. Zhang Peng felt secretly bitter when he heard this. Dong Shui had always been very gentle to him in the past, but he knew that the reason why she was like this now was because of what he had just said, which made Dong Shui angry. But who the hell knew that what happened to you at night was actually related to the minister? Zhang Peng looked up at Ye Xiaotian angrily, but happened to see Ye Xiaotian smiling at him. The smile was harmless, but it made Zhang Peng so angry that he felt like there was a bruise in his chest. Minister, I'm wrong. Zhang Peng finally gritted his teeth and Dong Shui gave him a fierce look, then turned and walked towards the door. But when he passed by Ye Xiaotian, he paused. Follow me. Okay, Minister Dong. Ye Xiaotian agreed, then smiled at Zhang Peng and followed Dong Shui out. After the two of them left, Zhang Peng's face immediately became ugly and gloomy, and he kicked the table. With a bang, the table immediately broke into pieces. Ye Xiaotian, we are not done yet. Zhang Peng's eyes were gloomy, and his voice was so loud that only he could hear it, filled with anger and a hint of jealousy. Chapter 19. Is this the place? On Zhongxing Road, there is a high-end Western restaurant. The luxurious and tasteful interior decoration and the many luxury cars in the parking lot at the door all indicate that this Western restaurant is not accessible to ordinary working-class people. Ye Xiaotian and Dong Shui sat opposite each other at a window seat on the second floor. The restaurant was filled with melodious violin sounds, and the atmosphere was cheerful and bright. How about it? This restaurant I picked is pretty good, right? Dong Shui had a smile on her pretty face, and her voice had a hint of boasting. This was incredible to her, but she expressed it very naturally in front of Ye Xiaotian. It's better to eat barbecue on the roadside. But Ye Xiaotian curled his lips. He really didn't like this kind of place. Not only is the food very expensive, but the portions are also not enough. Dong Shui's gentle and pretty face trembled slightly. She heard Ye Xiaotian's muttering. It would be better to eat barbecue on the roadside. I should not have booked this restaurant earlier. It is very difficult to book. If you hadn't really helped me out. Dong Shui was filled with murderous intent under her gentle appearance. Waiter. But she suppressed it, and clapped her snow-white hands lightly, and a waiter came over immediately. Excuse me, what can I do for you? Very polite. Bring me the menu. Dong Shui said, and then handed the menu to Ye Xiaotian. Go ahead. As a senior executive of Ouyang Group, Dong Shui had a very generous salary, so she said this with confidence. But the waiter next to them had a strange look in his eyes. He looked at Dong Shui, then at Ye Xiaotian, and could only sigh that he was another pretty boy. But this woman is of such high quality, there's no need to find a gigolo, right? Ye Xiaotian didn't know that he had become a gigolo in the eyes of the waiter. He opened the menu and started complaining. Is this steak made of gold? And it costs 388 yuan apiece. Also, the ones at the back are all cooked to a certain degree, there's no well done. Wow, the amount on your plate is for fish farming, right? It's so little, don't you feel guilty? Ye Xiaotian pointed at the menu and kept talking as his finger moved across it. Dong Shui next to her had her beautiful eyes wide open, her red lips slightly parted in a circle that made people want to commit a crime, and her gentle and pretty face had a hint of a thrilling blush. Was this man who was talking so much in front of him really brought in by him? It's so embarrassing that Dong Shui wanted to cover her face, but at the same time, her heart was touched. Other men in front of her behaved gentle, elegant and knowledgeable, while Ye Xiaotian's performance was really. But this made Dong Shui feel a sense of reality in her heart. Don't think that she doesn't know what those men really think. The waiter stood there awkwardly, his heart breaking. If he could speak at this moment, he would definitely yell at Ye Xiaotian, "Brother, are you here to mess things up?" Fortunately, Dong Shui spoke up at this time. I'm sorry, please leave first. She waved to the waiter, and the waiter breathed a sigh of relief, but couldn't help but glance at Ye Xiaotian when he left. He would remember this man and tell the security guard at the door not to let him in again next time. Why did you let him go? I still have a lot to say. Ye Xiaotian looked up with dissatisfaction. You'd better keep those words to yourself. Which Western restaurant serves well-done steak? Dong Shui couldn't help but glare at Ye Xiaotian, and then said again. As for the problem of insufficient portions, you can order several. Don't worry, I can still afford it. Are you sure you want me to let you go a little? Ye Xiaotian reached out and touched his nose, his tone teasing. Of course. Dong Shui was about to nod, but before she could finish her words, Ye Xiaotian interrupted her. Think carefully before you speak. Oh, okay, this sentence made Dong Shui's firm heart waver. Okay, pack up and follow me. Ye Xiaotian stood up from his seat and said to Dong Shui. Where are we going? Dong Shui was a little dazed for a moment and said subconsciously. Of course, we're going to eat. There's a very nice place. Not only is the food delicious, but there's also a great dining atmosphere. Ye Xiaotian opened his mouth and then added another sentence. Since you're treating me to a meal, it's not too much for me to choose the restaurant, right? Okay. Dong Shui hesitated for a moment, but still nodded. In fact, she was a little curious about where Ye Xiaotian was talking about. The food is delicious, and the dining atmosphere is great. I'm really looking forward to it. It should be better than here, right? Her beautiful eyes swept across the exquisite and luxurious decoration of the Western restaurant in front of her, and she couldn't help but say in her heart. The top 5, 666. Drink wine. Cheers, whoever doesn't drink is a grandson. Next to an open-air barbecue stall on the side of the road, Dong Shui looked in disbelief at the group of shirtless people drinking enthusiastically in front of her, then turned to look at Ye Xiaotian. "You, the place you mentioned with delicious food and a good dining atmosphere, is this the place?" Dong Shui couldn't believe it, and her beautiful eyes were filled with anticipation, hoping that Ye Xiaotian would shake his head and say it wasn't here. But unfortunately, the idea is beautiful, but the reality is cruel. "Yes, it's here. Isn't it nice? Come and sit down." Ye Xiaotian smiled, found a seat at random, and then waved to Dong Shui. I really believed his lies. Looking at the smiling face of the man not far away, Dong Shui wanted to throw her high-heeled shoes at his face to verify the extent of the shadow in her heart at the moment. "Boss, 30 skewers, 10 kidneys, 5 chicken legs, a plate of smashed cucumber, and a bottle of beer." Ye Xiaotian spoke in a very familiar tone, and the boss responded from a distance. At this time, Dong Shui had also sat down. There was no expression of disgust on her gentle and pretty face. She had also been here during college under the guidance of her roommate. "It's just that I haven't been here for a long time since I graduated from college, so I don't have any objection. The skewers are coming." After some time, everything Ye Xiaotian wanted was served to him. Then he picked up a chicken leg and started eating it without any hesitation, without any manner at all. But Dong Shui did not do anything. She just looked at Ye Xiaotian with her beautiful eyes strangely. She was a little confused about this man. Bringing her here, he eats without any manners, which is completely different from the men who behaved in front of her in the past. "Why aren't you eating?" After finishing a chicken leg, Ye Xiaotian realized that Dong Shui hadn't moved yet, and asked curiously, "Eat it now." Dong Shui suppressed her inner thoughts and picked up a chicken leg and started eating. In comparison, she ate like a lady, taking small bites. While eating chicken legs, Ye Xiaotian opened a bottle of beer and chatted with Dong Shui. "You look really handsome in the security uniform. No wonder the people in the public relations department were so excited on the 16th floor this morning." Dong Shui glanced at Ye Xiaotian with her beautiful eyes, then joked with a smile. This matter spread throughout the company. Word spread that a very handsome and stylish security guard had arrived, driving the group of visionary girls in the public relations department crazy. But from Dong Shui's perspective, he is really handsome. "That's right. You may not know my nickname. I am as handsome as Panan, the Wu Yanzu among the common people. I see flowers blooming when I see flowers, and I see tires burst when I drive a car." Ye Xiaotian boasted shamelessly, and Dong Shui exposed him without hesitation, and they had a very happy chat for a while. But not far away, there was a man with a pointed face and monkey cheeks. He stared at Ye Xiaotian and then took out his cell phone. "Hey, Brother Yang." Chapter 20 Street Siege. When they were halfway through the meal, the street lights came on. Under the dim light, Dong Shui's pretty face flushed, and her charm shone through her. She also drank some beer. Under the influence of alcohol, her whole body looked like a peach, exuding an enticing scent. The people eating nearby noticed this and their eyes widened. Some of them even drooled. "A stunning beauty. I would be willing to live 10 years less just to have a meal with a woman like this." This thought appeared in the mind of the person next to him, and then he looked at Ye Xiaotian with eyes full of envy and jealousy. "This man is so lucky. You really can eat." Looking at Ye Xiaotian eating chicken legs in front of her, Dong Shui couldn't help but say, with some relief in her tone. "Because up to now, almost all the things that were ordered previously have been eaten by Ye Xiaotian. With such a large appetite, it's a good thing that I didn't eat in a Western restaurant, otherwise this month's salary would be har. It's not bad." Ye Xiaotian smiled, but Dong Shui's beautiful eyes widened involuntarily. "Is this what you call not bad? What does it look like to not make do? I'll introduce you to a brother someday. His name is King Kong. The food he eats is horrible. Even compared to a tiger, it's not inferior." When the word King Kong was mentioned, Ye Xiaotian had a smile in his eyes, but then his ears moved, and then his eyes narrowed unconsciously. "How is it possible that humans eat more than tigers?" "You are bragging again," Dong Shui said coquettishly, her soft and pretty face flushed, and her feminine charm was displayed to the fullest. Immediately, someone who was eating nearby couldn't help but come over and strike up a conversation. Just at this moment, a series of dense footsteps suddenly came from not far away, and then this open-air barbecue stall was surrounded by more than 20 or 30 people. These 20 or 30 people were all holding baseball bats in their hands and had malicious expressions on their faces. This sudden scene caused the bustling open-air barbecue stall to suddenly fall into silence, and then the people eating there began to look a little panicked. Even Dong Shue's beautiful eyes flashed with a hint of panic, and then she quietly moved closer to Ye Xiaotian. Except for their table, everyone else, get out. A path suddenly cleared in the middle among the 20 or 30 people who were surrounding the place, and then a man in his 30s with a buzz cut and a face full of flesh came out. He pointed at the dining table where Ye Xiaotian and Dong Shue were sitting and said harshly. Upon hearing that they were not looking for trouble, everyone who was eating quickly got up and left. In the blink of an eye, only Ye Xiaotian and Dong Shue were left here. As for the boss here, he had already hidden himself when he saw the situation was not good. Although he felt bad that the person who ran away did not pay the bill, his own safety was the most important thing after all. Ye Xiaotian's expression remained calm, but Dong Shue clenched her fists. She had never encountered such a thing before, so she was a little panicked. However, being in a high position for a long time allowed her to remain calm. Good boy, you beat up my people and yet you still have time to eat barbecue here, you are really tired of living. There was a smile on Yang Lin's fleshy face, but there was coldness in his eyes. Upon hearing his words, Ye Xiaotian immediately understood that the several burly men who were knocked down by him in the morning, and the green-haired gangsters yesterday afternoon, were all this man's subordinates. In other words, this is the person behind Li Chuanyuan. You still have time to eat with a woman, you. Yang Lin was halfway through his words, but when he saw Dong Shue, he paused, and then his eyes were full of greed and lust. He had never seen such a top-notch woman. Her face was gentle, but at this moment, she gave people a charming feeling, and her delicate body wrapped in an OL uniform was hot and sexy. It was like the most primitive hormone, making his body hot. Hello, beautiful lady. My name is Yang Lin. These people are my subordinates. I own the Dynasty Club not far away. Yang Lin rubbed his hands and introduced himself. As he spoke, he stretched out his hands and tried to touch Dong Shue's gentle and pretty face. A hint of disgust flashed across Dong Shue's beautiful eyes, and she tilted her head. Yang Lin was not annoyed, but just touched her again. At the same time, the heat in his eyes became even stronger. This guy Ye Xiaotian, is he just going to watch like that? When Dong Shue caught a glimpse of Ye Xiaotian sitting quietly out of the corner of her eye, there was some anger in her eyes and disappointment in her heart. She was about to turn her head away again to avoid Yang Lin's dirty hands. But this time Yang Lin seemed to be prepared. He stretched out one hand and reached out to Dong Shue's plump and soft breasts, and was about to touch them. Dong Shue had never expected this situation, and her mind was stunned for a moment, while the desire in Yang Lin's eyes became even stronger, and a smile of success spread across his fleshy face. But at this time, Ye Xiaotian took action. He stretched out a hand steadily and pulled Dong Shue up from her seat. As a result, Yang Lin's hands were empty and his face instantly turned ugly. However, Dong Shue felt relaxed in her heart. She glanced at Ye Xiaotian and felt relieved. This guy is still a man. Are you looking for death? How dare you ruin my good thing? Yang Lin had a gloomy face and reached out to touch Dong Shue's pretty face again. But this time, without waiting for him to touch it, Ye Xiaotian directly raised his hand, swung it in the air, and then slammed it hard on Yang Lin's face. Bang! Immediately, an extremely crisp sound rang out clearly. Swish! The scene suddenly became quiet. Everyone, including Dong Shue, looked at Ye Xiaotian in disbelief. He actually took action just now? A feeling of unreality flowed in everyone's hearts. This guy is really daring. Dong Shue was shocked, but then she smiled bitterly. In this situation, if she didn't take action, she would suffer the consequences, let alone take action first. You? Yang Lin even forgot the pain on his face. He looked at Ye Xiaotian in disbelief. You can't touch her face. This is a small lesson for you. Ye Xiaotian said calmly, but this attitude made Yang Lin instantly furious. Go ahead, beat him to death. He waved his hand, and the 20 or 30 people surrounding the place immediately rushed forward. The crowds of people, waving baseball bats, made one's scalp tingle. What to do? Dong Shue's pretty face immediately turned pale. Looking at the crowds of people rushing towards her, the calmness she had maintained finally collapsed. As if feeling Dong Shue's delicate body trembling behind him, Ye Xiaotian grabbed Dong Shue's hand, then turned his head and said with a smile. Don't worry, they are just a bunch of rabble. A mob. Dong Shui felt relieved when she saw Ye Xiaotian's indifferent smile in front of her, but then she reacted and couldn't help but stuttering in disbelief. Yes, a mob. Ye Xiaotian nodded in affirmation. Just when Dong Shui couldn't help but refute, she saw a gangster holding a baseball bat and smashing it hard on Ye Xiaotian's head. Careful. Before Dong Shui could utter a word of warning, she saw Ye Xiaotian lightly throw a punch and hit the gangster in the chest. Bang! There seemed to be a muffled groan, and then, in Dong Shui's incredulous gaze, the gangster flew backwards like a kite with a broken string. Rushing all their way, destroying everything wherever it passes. A road was just created. Chapter 21 Scar. This. Dong Shui's beautiful eyes were filled with shock, and the expression on her gentle and pretty face was one of extreme horror. She couldn't believe what she was seeing. One punch, just one punch, but it knocked at least 5 or 6 thugs to the ground. Ye Xiaotian did not pay attention to Dong Shui's expression behind him, because he had already rushed into the crowd, like a tiger among sheep. In just a few breaths, the 20 or 30 people who had rushed over and made his scalp tingle were all lying on the ground. Pain. Ouch. Screams continued to ring out, but Ye Xiaotian gently patted the corner of his clothes, his face calm without a trace of ripples. A mob, truly a mob in front of him. Dong Shui once thought these for short words were bragging, but at this moment, they made her nod unconsciously. Gulp. Yang Lin, who was not far away, suddenly swallowed his saliva, his eyes widened with disbelief and deep shock, but the expression on his face was full of cruelty and confidence. The two form a sharp contrast. Are they still human? 20 or 30 of them were beaten down like this. Yang Lin thought in disbelief, with so many people, even if they pile up together, they can surely kill each other, right? Come here. Ye Xiaotian waved to Yang Lin. What are you doing? Yang Lin's body trembled, and then he asked loudly, but his voice was a little guilty. There was no way he couldn't help feeling guilty, as all those lying on the ground were his men, and the screams were coming one after another, as if echoing in his heart. He was just pretending to be calm in order to maintain his face as the boss. I asked you to come over. Ye Xiaotian raised his eyebrows and said it casually, but Yang Lin gritted his teeth and walked over. What do you want to do? I am. After walking over, Yang Lin took a deep breath and wanted to say something harsh, but before he could finish his words, Ye Xiaotian kicked him directly in the chest. Bang! With this powerful kick, Yang Lin fell directly to his knees hitting the concrete floor, and it was painful just to hear it. R. Caught off guard, Yang Lin shouted out, his face grim and sweat dripping. He looked up and glared at Ye Xiaotian, with deep hatred and resentment in his eyes. When Dong Shui met this gaze, her graceful body wrapped in the OL uniform trembled slightly. But Ye Xiaotian smiled and said, Want to do it? Swish. These 3 short words made Yang Lin's face change drastically. He clenched and unclenched his fists, and finally lowered his head to show his submission. I don't dare. I hope you really don't dare, but it doesn't matter. I've been a bit bored lately, so you can find some powerful people to take action against me. After saying this, Ye Xiaotian took Dong Shui's hand, which was still in his palm, and left. Yang Lin, who was kneeling on the ground, suddenly looked up, his face filled with a ferocious and crazy look. Is this an insult to him? Boss, what should we do? A thug who was less seriously injured came over and asked. Yeah, boss. Where can we find someone more powerful to attack him? This Ye Xiaotian is simply a pervert. Someone nearby echoed. Ye Xiaotian's thundering attack just now was like a mountain hitting their hearts. Now, just thinking about it made them turn pale. Where can I find such a capable person? This question emerged in everyone's mind, but Yang Lin's hideous face smiled grimly at this moment, looking eerie. Who said we were going to find someone more powerful? What do you mean, boss? Boss. The gangsters were all puzzled, but Yang Lin didn't say anything, but the gloominess in his eyes became even darker. Why look for someone? It takes time and effort and may not necessarily solve the problem. It's better to call the police directly. You beat up so many people and wait to go to jail. I don't believe you dare to hit the police. And once they are in prison, there are plenty of ways to make their life a living hell. Yang Lin had an idea in his mind, and then he took out his cell phone and called the policeman he knew in the police station. Director Wang, I have something to ask. Under the dim street lights, the two figures were stretched out very long, and it looked surprisingly warm. Although I know I'm handsome, you can't keep looking at me, right? You have to pay. When Dong Shue's beautiful eyes looked at him again, Ye Xiaotian finally couldn't help but joked. Along the way, he could feel many people looking at him from the side. Who looked at you? Stop being narcissistic. Dong Shue's pretty face blushed after being caught in the act, and then she spoke stubbornly. Anyone who sees it will know. If you want to see it, just look openly. My charm radiates from the inside out. A mortal like you will naturally be unable to resist it. Ye Xiaotian said this seriously, but was met with a snort from Dong Shue, who seemed to be very disdainful of what Ye Xiaotian said. But Dong Shue's heart was in great turmoil. She didn't expect that Ye Xiaotian's skills were so amazing, it was like he was in a movie. No one can resist his punches and kicks. Awesome. Dong Shue thought to herself, and then she remembered the call Huang made to her in the morning. It turns out this guy is really an expert. Dong Shue suppressed the thoughts in her mind, stopped, and then smiled gently on her pretty face. I'm going home first. See you at work tomorrow. Okay, see you at work. Ye Xiaotian nodded, and then Dong Shue waved, a taxi stopped, and she got in. Looking at the taxi gradually moving away, Ye Xiaotian stretched his arms and walked towards the villa area. As for what happened before, he had long forgotten it. Will a lion turn back because of a dog's barking? Come on, no matter how fierce a dog is, it's still just a dog. In the taxi, Dong Shue looked out the window absent-mindedly, with memories in her beautiful eyes. The scene of Ye Xiaotian standing in front of her made her feel very safe and also made her think of some things. 2 years ago, when she was traveling to Europe, the tour group she was in was hijacked by terrorists. There were a total of 13 women in the tour group, and every night one woman was tortured to death by the terrorists. Every time the woman's body was carried out the next day, Dong Shue's pretty face would turn paler. On the 7th day, the terrorists finally targeted her. Frankly speaking, Dong Shue had already made up her mind to commit suicide at that time. I would rather die than be insulted. She wants to leave with a clear conscience. However, on that day, a masked Chinese man appeared and killed all the terrorists, rescuing her and the tour group. Dong Shue, who was determined to die, imprinted the man's figure deeply in her heart when she got hope of survival. The figure was invincible and brave, like a god of war. The sunlight that afternoon shone on him, making him look like a god. No one knew that Dong Shue fell in love at first sight. Although she didn't know what the man looked like because he was wearing a mask at the time, she fell in love with him and loved him for 2 years. I've been looking for it for 2 years. I believe I can find it, for sure. Dong Shue took a deep breath, and then her pretty face looked determined. Although she didn't know what the man looked like, she knew that there was a long scar on his back, spreading from his shoulder to his waist. It was so hideous that it made her scalp tingle. I will not marry anyone but you in this life. I must find you, my god of war. After Ye Xiaotian returned to the villa, he did not see Ouyang Weiwei, although the lights in the villa were on. The spendthrift daughter-in-law. Muttering something, Ye Xiaotian went into the bathroom, intending to take a nice bath. After quickly taking off all his clothes, Ye Xiaotian turned his back and let the clean water wash over his back. However, if someone saw his back at this moment, they would probably be shocked and their scalp would go numb. Because there was a long scar on Ye Xiaotian's back, extending from his shoulder to his waist, which was hideous and shocking. Chapter 22. The ancients were not deceiving me. When Ye Xiaotian was taking a shower in the bathroom, there was a slamming sound of a door closing on the 2nd floor of the villa. Sister, when are you coming home? It's so boring for me to be home alone. Ouyang baby said to the phone, then walked down the stairs to the living room on the 1st floor and sat down on the sofa. Her whole body was relaxed, her 2 snow-white feet were stepping on the carpet, and her cute baby face was full of coquettishness. But this is not the point. The point is that at this moment, Ouyang baby is naked all over, with 2 huge soft balls hanging on her chest, making people worry that they will fall off. They are white, soft and sparkling with a crystal luster. The swan-like white neck, the slender waist that could not be grasped with one hand, and the straight and long legs were all exposed to the air. Their hot and seductive posture made the air feel a little hotter. But Ouyang baby has a small and cute face, and this sharp contrast makes her even more attractive. Are you at my house? In the president's office, Ouyang Weiwei's eyebrows suddenly raised. What do you mean your home? I'm your biological sister, your home is my home. Ouyang Baobao said coquettishly. She was in a good mood today because she had done a great deed yesterday and sent several thugs to the police station with her own hands. And he was brave enough to do something righteous, right? The most important thing is that the man is the security guard of my sister's company, one of us. So, you are indeed in my house. Ouyang Weiwei took a deep breath and then said quickly. Baby, is there anyone else at home now? As she spoke, Ouyang Weiwei began to pack her things. She had to hurry home because there was now a man at home, and if her curious sister found out, that would be a disaster. No, it's just me. Ouyang baby replied, and then looked at the two soft lumps on her chest with some distress. She took a pillow and put it underneath, then she felt better. It's also a pain if it's too big. Huh. Ouyang Weiwei on the other end of the phone breathed a sigh of relief. It seemed that Ye Xiaotian had not returned home yet. That was good. Don't you have to go to school? If you skip classes, forget about becoming a police officer. Ouyang Weiwei said coldly, wanting her sister to go back to school. But Ouyang Baobao said nonchalantly, Sister, today is Friday, school is closed. Then you can't live at home either, because. Ouyang Weiwei's mind raced, trying to find a perfect excuse. However, Ouyang Baobao, who was on the other end of the phone, heard the sound of a door opening behind him. Click. I turned my head subconsciously and saw a man walking out of the bathroom. The man was wearing boxer shorts and a striped vest. He had a very muscular body. Although he didn't have many muscular lines, he gave people an exaggerated sense of explosive power. He seems to be more handsome than the male models in magazines. This was the first thought in Ouyang Baobao's mind. The second thought was how a man could appear here. R. A high-pitched scream came out from Ouyang baby's mouth, and at the same time, she jumped up from the sofa, completely unaware that she was now without any clothes on her body. The sudden high-pitched scream in her ears startled Ye Xiaotian, who had just come out of the bathroom. What the hell? He hadn't finished speaking yet. When Ye Xiaotian looked over there, he swallowed a mouthful of saliva. She has wild flaxen short hair, a cute baby face, a swan-like white neck, a slender waist, and straight and slender legs. There were also two very white and tender plump breasts. When all of these were exposed in front of Ye Xiaotian, he felt the heat in his body suddenly rising. But before he could continue watching, Ouyang baby finally reacted quickly, dodged on the sofa, and put the pillow on his chest. Arth, how could there be a man in this house? You're finished, I'm going to kill you. Ouyang baby went crazy and threw the phone directly over, but Ye Xiaotian dodged it and the phone broke into pieces. In the president's office, Ouyang Weiwei's delicate face was as gloomy as water. She heard everything that happened on the phone just now. It was obvious that Ye Xiaotian and his sister had met. The reason why her sister screamed was because she remembered her habit of never wearing clothes at home. Ouyang Weiwei put on a calm face and quickly rushed home. Ye Xiaotian, you better not see anything. When Ouyang baby put on her clothes and came back to the living room, there was a murderous look on her cute baby face. Although she has a carefree personality, she knows that her body must have been seen clearly by men. Tell me, who are you and why are you in my sister's house, and? Ouyang Baobao was about to speak with a stern face, but was stunned when she saw Ye Xiaotian. Isn't he this the person she rescued from a few thugs yesterday afternoon? Hello. Ye Xiaotian also recognized Ouyang Baobao. After coughing, he greeted him. It's you? Ouyang Baobao's face suddenly became serious, and then he said, I know, you are a spy sent by another company. You want to steal the secrets of my sister's company, but because the company's defense is tight, you were able to get into their house. Ye Xiaotian's expression became a little strange. Looking at Ouyang Baobao, who was analyzing things seriously, the corner of his mouth twitched. Keep it simple, think in a simple way. Bang! Ouyang Baobao suddenly slapped the table with his little hand, and then said seriously, but you didn't expect that I was at home, so your plot didn't succeed. This time I'm going to send you to prison. Here's my chance to make a contribution. Ouyang Baobao spoke with great momentum, but the corners of Ye Xiaotian's mouth twitched several times. As expected, big breasts and no brains, the ancients were right. Speak. Ouyang Baobao slammed the table again, with a bit of complacency in her beautiful big eyes. She felt that at this moment she was like the living Zhuge Liang. I can give you a chance to speak, but everything you say will be used as evidence in court. Ouyang baby waved her little hand and said what she had wanted to say for a long time, then looked at Ye Xiaotian with a look that said, "You're done." "Well, actually I just want to say one thing now." Ye Xiaotian reached out and touched his nose, glancing at Ouyang baby's chest while speaking. Even though she was wearing clothes, her breasts were so big and full that people were worried that they would break free from the clothes and jump out. "And it's really white. You say?" Ouyang baby, who was immersed in complacency, raised his little head and said directly. "Shouldn't you be asking me what I saw just now? Why did you?" Ye Xiaotian had a strange look in his eyes, but before he could finish his words, a blush appeared on Ouyang Baobao's face. "Shut up." She glared at Ye Xiaotian with her beautiful eyes, but her cute baby face lost some of the anger. After a pause, she continued, "Tell me, what did you see just now?" Chapter 23. Ouyang Weiwei arrives. Isn't this a bit late to ask? You've been talking a lot of useless words here, and then you remembered to ask me what I saw just now. Is he a big-headed person or is he slow to react? Looking at the cute little face in front of him, Ouyang baby, whose face was angry but even cuter, Ye Xiaotian had a weird look in his eyes, but his face looked very serious. "I didn't see anything just now." "Really?" Ouyang baby said happily when she heard that, and blinked her beautiful eyes at Ye Xiaotian. "Of course it's true." Ye Xiaotian nodded seriously, but the corners of his mouth twitched unconsciously. "I always feel guilty about cheating on a stupid girl with big breasts and no brains like this. But there was no way." From what he said just now, it was Ouyang Weiwei's sister. If his contracted wife knew that her sister was seen naked, she would probably go crazy, right? It's better to have less trouble than more. If that's the case. Ouyang baby's cute little face relaxed a little, but then his beautiful eyes suddenly rolled, and then he said coldly. "So what underwear was I wearing? Are you wearing underwear? You're obviously not wearing any." Ye Xiaotian spoke subconsciously, but stopped halfway, then looked up carefully. The cute little face of Ouyang baby in front of him was extremely red at this moment. And her beautiful eyes were full of shame and anger that made her want to kill someone. "You bastard! I'm going to fight you." Baby Ouyang kicked Ye Xiaotian's stomach directly. "Bold, white tiger," these words kept ringing in her little head, stimulating her soul. Don't think she doesn't know what by who means. She was actually seen in that place. "No, I was just talking nonsense, you were wearing underwear." Ye Xiaotian was in the wrong, so he dodged the opponent's kick and then spoke while dodging. As he spoke, Ouyang baby's cute face became more and more rosy, and murderous aura surged from her body. "Today it's either you or me, or it's either me or you." Ouyang baby was furious and tried to punch and kick Ye Xiaotian, but Ye Xiaotian dodged them all. In his rage, Ouyang Baobao didn't even think about why Ye Xiaotian was able to dodge it. "Don't run!" Ouyang baby roared, then punched Ye Xiaotian's chest with her pink fist, with flames of shame and anger flashing in her beautiful eyes. Seeing this, Ye Xiaotian sighed and did not try to dodge, but took the punch. Who made him accidentally tell the truth just now? Die! Ouyang Baobao succeeded in his punch and was about to continue, but at this moment the door was pushed open and a cold female voice sounded. "Stop!" Ouyang Weiwei finally arrived with a cold and delicate face. While speaking, she had already walked to the side of Ye Xiaotian and Ouyang baby. "You two should separate first." She frowned her beautiful eyebrows and looked at Ye Xiaotian unkindly. She naturally sided with her sister, and the impression Ye Xiaotian had left on her before was really bad. "Sister, you must make the decision for me." Seeing Ouyang Weiwei, Ouyang Baobao suddenly said aggrievedly. Probably because of her emotional ups and downs, her huge chest shook a few times, surging. Ye Xiaotian couldn't help but take a few glances, and then swallowed. "Don't worry, I will definitely take care of it for you." Ouyang Weiwei took her sister's hand and sat on the sofa. After comforting her, she asked, "Tell me, what did he do to you?" Her tone was cold and her pretty face was frosty. "He just..." Ouyang Baobao was about to start accusing, but he stopped suddenly after saying a few words. What should she say? Say that her whole body was seen, bald, white tiger? Even for sisters, this kind of thing is inexplicably embarrassing. "It's okay, sister will take care of it for you." "What did this guy do to you?" Seeing that the baby didn't say anything, Ouyang Weiwei's tone became even colder. "Could it be that while I was away, this man Ye Xiaotian took the opportunity to bang?" Ouyang Weiwei slapped the table next to her with her small hand, and anger flashed in her beautiful eyes. If this was really the case, then she would terminate the contract immediately. No need for a 1-month probation period. This kind of man is not worthy of being a father. Sister, just now he stepped on my foot, it hurts. Facing his sister's cold and caring eyes, Ouyang baby hesitated and finally spoke. What? But as soon as she said this, not only Ouyang Weiwei was stunned, even Ye Xiaotian was stunned for a moment. What are you doing? Yes, he just stepped on my foot. Sister, you have to help me vent my anger. Ouyang Baobao gritted his teeth and said word by word, looking at Ye Xiaotian with murderous eyes. Although she decided to hide it from her sister, she was not ready to let her go. Just stepped on your foot. Ouyang Weiwei frowned, somewhat unconvinced. Of course, sister, you take care of him. Ouyang Baobao nodded. Huh. For some reason, Ouyang Weiwei suddenly felt relieved. She was about to speak, but was interrupted by Ouyang Baobao's next words. And sister, why did he appear in our house? Who is he? Ouyang Baobao pointed her green jade finger at Ye Xiaotian. Only at this moment did she finally remember the question, how could there be a man in the family? Judging from the sister's attitude, she was obviously not surprised that he was at home, so the spy's inference can be thrown into the trash. He. Ouyang Weiwei paused, then looked at Ye Xiaotian who was sitting next to her. Go back to your room first, I'll tell you later. Ouyang Weiwei spoke up. She knew she couldn't avoid this matter and her sister would know it sooner or later. Why do we have to go back to the room first? I want to know now. Ouyang baby started talking immediately, but halfway through his words, he was met with Ouyang Weiwei's serious gaze. Okay. Pursing her rosy little lips, Ouyang baby stood up from the sofa and walked towards the stairs. But when she passed by Ye Xiaotian, she glared at him fiercely with her beautiful eyes. We are not done yet. This was clearly revealed in her beautiful eyes filled with murderous intent. At the same time, her cute little face was gritting her teeth. Ye Xiaotian reached out and touched his nose, ignoring Ouyang baby. Tell me, what happened just now? Watching her sister go upstairs, Ouyang Weiwei turned and looked at Ye Xiaotian directly. She didn't believe it and just stepped on her foot. The scream on the phone at that time was obviously a big deal. Didn't your sister say that I stepped on her foot? I was wrong about this. Ye Xiaotian spread his hands and spoke. I hope it's true. Ouyang Weiwei looked at Ye Xiaotian deeply, knowing that she couldn't get anything out of him, so she paused for a moment before speaking directly. But I warn you, don't have any extra thoughts about my sister. If you dare to have any, I will fight you to the death. Ouyang Weiwei's tone and the expression on her pretty face were extremely cold. Chapter 24. Has your conscience been eaten by a dog? It seems that in the heart of this contracted wife, my sister has a very high status. Ye Xiaotian raised his eyebrows, looked at Ouyang Weiwei, whose pretty face was full of frost, and suddenly spoke. Is it true that we can't have any extra thoughts? No. I can't. Ouyang Weiwei's delicate face suddenly became even colder, and her beautiful eyes were filled with murderous intent. If you dare to have any extra thoughts, I promise. Before he could finish his words, he was interrupted by Ye Xiaotian. You will definitely try to kill me, right? Okay, you don't have to promise that I won't have any thoughts about your sister. Waving his hand, Ye Xiaotian stood up from the sofa and prepared to go back to his room to sleep. But he was stopped by Ouyang Weiwei. Etc. Is there anything else? Ye Xiaotian looked back in surprise, a little confused. Sit down, I have something to say to you. Ouyang Weiwei spoke, and Ye Xiaotian sat down after hearing her, waiting for her to speak. First of all, you can't dress like this at home anymore. The first sentence made Ye Xiaotian's eyes widen. What am I dressed like? As he spoke, Ye Xiaotian looked down at himself. Shorts and a vest, how normal. From now on, you need to wear long pants and long sleeves at home. Ouyang Weiwei had a cold face, but if you look closely, you can see a gleam in her beautiful eyes. Honestly speaking, Ye Xiaotian in shorts and a vest had an exaggerated sense of explosiveness all over his body. His masculine aura was overwhelming, and his sharp edges and corners beat all the models in the magazines. Even after she took a closer look, her heart was moved. Weiwei, are you attracted to me in this outfit? Ye Xiaotian glanced at Ouyang Weiwei who was avoiding his gaze, and then suddenly spoke. I don't. Really? From a psychological point of view, you paused in your speech just now, which clearly shows that you are guilty, and you avoided looking at me. Admit it, you have lustful thoughts about me. Ye Xiaotian's eyes flashed with wisdom, but Ouyang Weiwei clenched her teeth. Damn psychology. Anyway, if you continue to dress like this in your home, you will be in breach of the contract and will have to pay 10 million in damages. Ouyang Weiwei changed the subject and didn't intend to dwell on the word lust. Fuck, why? Ye Xiaotian was instantly furious, and when Ouyang Weiwei heard the word fuck from his mouth, her pretty face darkened. Heaven and earth can testify that this is the first time a man has sworn in front of her. He is truly useless. Even though you're a woman, you should still be reasonable, right? You want me to wear long sleeves and long pants in such hot weather? Has your conscience been eaten by a dog? Women are indeed the most vicious. Ye Xiaotian spoke viciously, and murderous aura emanated from Ouyang Weiwei. Conscience eaten by a dog. The most vicious heart of a woman. Also, the reason I signed the contract with you was because of the bright red on the bed sheet, but don't go too far. You didn't let me move around before, and I put up with it, but now you even restrict me from wearing clothes. Don't go too far. I have my dignity too. Ye Xiaotian waved his hand and spoke word by word. Am I overdoing it? Do you know that I'm pregnant now? If I wasn't pregnant, I might have signed a contract with a man like you. Ouyang Weiwei's chest trembled several times with anger, but she took a deep breath before continuing. If it weren't for me, you wouldn't even have a job now. Dignity. Who said that? There's a long line of companies wanting to see me, and the lowest ranking ones are all presidents, but I'm too lazy to go. Do you know how popular I am? Ye Xiaotian looked a little embarrassed at first, but then he boasted shamelessly, and Ouyang Weiwei almost vomited blood. Shameless yet able to brag, this is the kind of man you're talking about, right? Apart from the way you dress, I hope you can work more seriously in the company, that's all. After saying this, Ouyang Weiwei hurried to the second floor of the villa. She was really afraid that if she stayed any longer, she would not be able to resist killing Ye Xiaotian. On the sofa, Ye Xiaotian glanced at Ouyang Weiwei's back. With a straight back, round and perky buttocks, and slender legs, her good figure seems to add a touch of heat to the air. Only after the figure had completely gone up the stairs and nothing could be seen anymore did Ye Xiaotian reluctantly withdrew his gaze. He touched his nose with his hand and narrowed his eyes slightly. A 1-month contract marriage. Why on earth? I always feel like there's something being hidden from me. The next morning, Ye Xiaotian's biological clock woke him up on time. After brushing his teeth and washing his face, he went out for a run. After running around the villa complex for more than 10 laps, Ye Xiaotian returned home. However, as soon as he entered the house, he realized something was wrong. A murderous gaze focused on him. Turning his head, Ye Xiaotian discovered that the owner of this murderous gaze was Ouyang Baobao. Almost instantly, Ye Xiaotian became alert. He still remembered what happened last night. Prepare to die, thief. Ouyang Baby let out a light roar and quickly kicked over with a long leg, making a whistling sound, looking very fierce. At the same time, under the wild flaxen short hair, the cute little face was filled with anger. No, then I'm a thief, you'd better be responsible for what you say. Ye Xiaotian took a step back, dodged the kick, and then said quickly. You are lewd thief. Not only did you look at my body, but you also told my sister. Ouyang Baobao's face became even angrier. Her huge and soft breasts were shaking violently, surging and all white. Ye Xiaotian immediately swallowed his saliva, and the tempting scene he saw last night rang in his mind again. But then he suppressed it and said directly, what's wrong with me and your sister? Don't you know what you did? Ouyang Baobao looked at Ye Xiaotian with hatred, and then kicked him again. My sister is actually pregnant with the child of this man in front of me. She got married for this reason. Although there is a 1-month contract marriage as a fallback, my sister will definitely continue to live with him. Because she and her sister have been without a father since childhood, she will not let the next generation continue like this. Hateful. Wait, even though something happened between your sister and I, she was drunk and went into the wrong room. You can't blame me for that, right? Ye Xiaotian dodged again and then said. It's all your fault. Ouyang Baobao was very angry because her sister had strictly warned her not to tell her that she was pregnant. In her opinion, her sister had suffered a great injustice. It's unreasonable. After glancing at Ouyang Baby, Ye Xiaotian quickly returned to the room. Just as he closed the door, he heard a crackling sound outside. Damn it, let's wait and see. Baby Ouyang stood at the door, with her pink fists clenched tightly, and her cute little face was full of indignation. Chapter 25 Tracking in Progress. When Ye Xiaotian walked out of the villa, it was already 7:30 in the morning. He took out a cigarette from his pocket, lit it and took a deep puff. It's better to go out. I can't even smoke at home, you damn old woman. Ye Xiaotian complained, but just as he finished speaking, the sound of a car roared from behind him. Turning around, I found a red Audi A8 driving towards me. Sitting in the driver's seat was Ouyang Weiwei with a cool and delicate face. Today she was wearing a white shirt, which made her face look even whiter and more delicate, and also enhanced her cool temperament. Weiwei, please stop the car and let me get in. Ye Xiaotian waved his hand, wanting to get a ride. But in response to him, a red Audi drove past quickly, leaving only the exhaust gas behind. Fuck. Ye Xiaotian waved his hands in front of his eyes several times and cursed. In the Audi, Ouyang Weiwei's beautiful eyes looked at Ye Xiaotian's anxious look in the rearview mirror. The corners of her pretty mouth curled up slightly, but then she thought of what she had just heard, and a frost spread across her cheeks again. Ye Xiaotian, don't think I didn't hear what you said to me just now. Damn old woman, God knows how devastated she was when she heard these four words just now. Fortunately, she suppressed it at the last moment, otherwise she would definitely drive her car towards Ye Xiaotian. Damn this man. I really want to die together with him. You can't even give me a ride, you're so stingy. Do other people know that you treat your husband like this? Sooner or later you'll go bankrupt. Ye Xiaotian cursed while holding a cigarette in his mouth. He had already walked out of the villa area. Not far behind him, a figure was following him stealthily. Humph, with what I, Ouyang Baobao, have learned in the police academy over the years, tracking someone is too easy. The figure said this, even though she was wearing a hat and mask, her huge, soft chest still exposed her identity. I'm following you today. I have to observe what kind of person you are. If you are not good, I will definitely ask my sister to terminate the contract. A hint of determination flashed in Ouyang Baby's beautiful eyes, and then she swung her pair of pink fists fiercely in the air. She looks very imposing, but the cute little face that is faintly visible under the mask makes this imposingness diminish. In front, Ye Xiaotian threw the almost finished cigarette in his mouth into the trash can next to him, and then his eyes swept to somewhere behind him. Are you following me? This is full of loopholes. Shaking his head, Ye Xiaotian didn't care. He just saw a lot of people gathered together when passing by a park. This old man suddenly fainted on the ground. What happened? Could it be a scam? There are quite a few elderly people scamming people here recently. But judging from the way this old man is dressed, that shouldn't be the case, right? Who knows? Anyway, it's better to have less trouble than more. Besides, if it's really a scam, I'll lose everything. Listening to the discussions, Ye Xiaotian roughly knew what was going on. Seeing that it was still early, he pushed through the crowd and squeezed in. I saw an empty area in the middle. When I looked down, I saw an old man lying on the ground. He was about 70 years old, wearing a sports suit and had a kind face. But at this moment, his eyes were closed and there was a hint of pain on his face. Ye Xiaotian narrowed his eyes. He could tell that the old man was not pretending. When the crowd was wondering what to do, Ye Xiaotian walked over and put his hand on the old man's wrist. Why did this young man walk over there? What if he was blackmailed? Alas, the young man has never seen the world. He will regret it. Ye Xiaotian didn't care about these discussions. He just quietly felt the old man's pulse and then a look of understanding appeared in his eyes. So that's how it is. Seeing that the old man had not woken up until now, the crowd immediately knew that he was really in a coma and not committing fraud. After all, if it was a scam, you should have woken up by now. Call 120 and ask the ambulance to come as soon as possible. Yeah, okay? Along with the discussions, someone took out his cell phone to make a call, but was stopped by Ye Xiaotian. No, I can cure it. What? The onlookers were immediately stunned, and then looked at Ye Xiaotian with disbelief. The way he was dressed now did not seem to be related to being a doctor at all. Ignoring the questioning and disbelieving looks, Ye Xiaotian lifted up the old man's upper body, then he stretched out his right hand and patted the old man's chest directly in front of the incredulous gazes of the onlookers. Bang! There was an extremely slight muffled sound. Swish! There was a moment of silence at the scene, and everyone had a look of horror on their faces. Is this how you save people? Are you sure this slap won't send people to hell? Is this young man crazy? He actually dares to pat his chest. It's over, he's in trouble. Let's stay a little further away from him. The onlookers all shuddered, then immediately stepped back, and some were ready to call the police. Not far away, baby Ouyang was watching this scene, a hint of anger flashing in her beautiful eyes. You scum! How dare you commit a crime in broad daylight? Just as I was about to walk over with an angry look on my face, something unexpected happened. Puff! The unconscious old man with a look of pain on his face suddenly opened his mouth and spat a small date pit on the ground. Then his tightly closed eyes slowly opened. Seeing this scene, the onlookers were immediately stunned. What on earth happened? A smart person looked at the date pit spit out on the ground and vaguely understood what had happened. The old man looked around in a daze and found that there were many people around him. Just as he was about to speak, he suddenly remembered what happened before he fainted. He seemed to have just finished eating a date and was about to spit out the date pit when he stumbled and the date pit blocked his throat. He fainted and passed out. Who saved me? The old man saw the date pit on the ground and immediately understood what was going on. He spoke to everyone. At this moment, a smart person had already told the whole story based on the date pits on the ground. Suddenly, when everyone looked at Ye Xiaotian again, there was admiration and shame in their eyes. Compared to their reluctance to save people at that time, Ye Xiaotian can be said to be great. At the same time, thinking of the person who had just questioned Ye Xiaotian and patted his chest, everyone's old face turned red. So embarrassing. Old man, it was this young man who saved you, you must thank him. Yes, to be honest, we didn't dare to save you just now, but this guy went up without saying a word. If it weren't for him, you might really be in danger. The onlookers were all talking, and the old man was looking at Ye Xiaotian at this moment with sincere gratitude on his face. Thank you, young man. If it weren't for you, my old bones would be ruined. As he spoke, there was some fear in his eyes. The date pit blocked his throat. This was very dangerous. If it was a little later, he would really go to hell. It's okay, it's just a piece of cake. Ye Xiaotian waved his hand casually, and then helped the old man up from the ground. Hey young man, do you have a cell phone? Let me make a call if I can. The old man spoke, and Ye Xiaotian didn't think much about it and handed the phone to the old man, knowing that this might be a call to his family. Chapter 26, No Tears Until You See the Coffin. More than 10 minutes later, a black Volkswagen Passat stopped on the side of the road, then the door opened and a man in his 40s got out. Dad, are you okay? Wang Haijun looked anxious. After seeing the old man next to Ye Xiaotian, he hurried over and said. He was in a meeting at the bureau when he received a call from his father. When he heard that he almost lost his life, he was so scared that he broke out in a sweat, so he rushed over. Why, do you hope something happens to me? The old man glared at me, looking very imposing. Dad, what you said makes me. Wang Haijun rubbed his hands, completely losing the demeanor of a deputy director of the Public Security Bureau. When the secretary who got off the car later saw this, he thought to himself, as expected, Director Wang is in awe of his father. Okay, if it weren't for this young man next to me who saved me, I would have really died. You must thank him, understand? The old man pointed at Ye Xiaotian and then said. That's right. If it weren't for him, your father would have really died. Indeed, it's embarrassing to say that none of us dared to step forward just now, fearing that we would get into trouble. But this man stepped forward directly and even slapped out the date pit. If it weren't for him, what you're seeing right now would probably be your father's. Some of the onlookers still remained and spoke up one after another. Wang Haijun fixed his eyes on Ye Xiaotian. He had just heard his father mention it on the phone, but now listening to so many people talking, he felt a strong sense of fear. Is the situation really so critical? Thinking about how my father had just fainted on the side of the road and no one came forward, the date pit in his throat could very well take his life in the next second. In such a situation, if the other party hadn't said, "Hello, my name is Wang Haijun, thank you very much for saving my father." Wang Haijun stretched out his hand, his face full of gratitude, and then he turned to the secretary and said, "Bring out the business card with my mobile phone number printed on it." Okay, Director Wang. The secretary agreed, took out a business card from her bag and handed it to Wang Haijun. But there was a huge wave in his heart. This business card was not something that ordinary people could get, because it represented the recognition of Wang Haijun, the second in command of Jiangcheng Public Security. What a lucky man! The secretary was thinking in his heart, but when he thought of the fact that Ye Xiaotian saved Wang Haijun's father, he hid his inner thoughts. This is what the other party deserves. My name is Ye Xiaotian. As for your business card. Ye Xiaotian waved his hand and was not prepared to take Wang Haijun's business card, but it was forced into his hands. If you have any problems, you can call me. In Jiangcheng, my words still have some influence. Wang Haijun was modest in words, but his confidence was evident in his speech. He. Looking at the business card stuffed into his hand, Ye Xiaotian curled his lips helplessly, then looked at the old man. Try not to eat dates in the future, it's dangerous. Har, don't worry, young man, it won't happen again in the future. The old man said with a smile. Yeah. Nodding, Ye Xiaotian said a few more words before leaving. Wang Haijun took the old man to the hospital for another systematic examination. The secretary glanced at Ye Xiaotian's back and had some thoughts in his mind. It seemed that he had to have more contact with the other party. After all, he saved the director's father. If the other party said a few good words for him in front of the director, then he suppressed his inner thoughts and drove away, but he remembered the name Ye Xiaotian in his heart. The crowd of onlookers slowly dispersed when they saw that there was nothing exciting to watch, but Ouyang Baobao did not leave. There was complexity and disbelief on that cute little face. This guy actually saved the old man. That slap was like a death sentence. She murmured to herself, and then Ouyang baby thought about her previous misunderstanding of Ye Xiaotian, and her cute face blushed. Then she thought that so many people did not dare to step forward, but only Ye Xiaotian stepped forward and saved the old man's life. A bright light flashed in her beautiful eyes. It seems that even though this guy is annoying, he is at least kind. Ye Xiaotian had no idea what happened afterwards. When he entered the gate of Ouyang Group, it was only 8 o'clock in the morning, which was still a little before work time. Brother Yi, you're here to work so early. Hello, Brother Yi, you are awesome. Brother Yi, have you had breakfast? If not, I'll buy you some. As soon as I entered the security department, I was greeted by a series of greetings, and every security guard had a look of admiration and respect on his face. Not to mention the sensation Ye Xiaotian caused on the 16th floor yesterday, the fact that he dared to confront Zhang Peng head-on was enough to make them admire him. After all, Zhang Peng has a high prestige in the security department. If it were them, they would never dare to do that. Not to mention Dong Shui's support at the last moment. All this made everyone admire Ye Xiaotian, but also give him more gossip. Well, hello everyone. Ye Xiaotian nodded and said with a smile. At once many security guards gathered around and this place became the center of the security department. When Li Changyuan pushed the door open and walked in, he saw this scene and immediately felt very unhappy. His chest still hurts until now, but Ye Xiaotian is surrounded by many people, and this contrast makes him indignant. Snort. After he snorted coldly, he actually walked towards Ye Xiaotian with a smug smile on his face. Originally, he didn't dare to provoke Ye Xiaotian again, because after seeing his skills yesterday, he was so scared that he was trembling all over, not to mention that he could feel that the warning at that time was definitely not a joke. However, thinking of the call he had just received from Brother Yarn, the smug look on Li Changyuan's face intensified. No matter how skilled you are, you still dare to attack the police? You are dead this time. Ye Xiaotian, I advise you to keep a low profile, or you may die without knowing how you died. Li Changyuan had a look of arrogance on his face and spoke with disdain. Because his voice was quite loud, it was heard by everyone and the security department immediately fell silent. Ye Xiaotian narrowed his eyes. Was the lesson he learned yesterday not enough? Facing Ye Xiaotian's gaze, Li Changyuan, who was looking very proud, suddenly trembled. He felt the terrifying power of a ferocious beast from his gaze. What did you just say? Ye Xiaotian spoke with a calm face, but Li Changyuan instantly became scared. HMPH, just wait and see. He didn't dare to say anything else and could only turn around and leave after saying a few words, but he felt humiliated in his heart because he was frightened by the gaze. Judging from the time, the police that Brother Yang called should be here soon. Go to hell. There was a sinister look in Li Changyuan's eyes, but looking at his back, Ye Xiaotian reached out and touched his nose. It seems that some people won't cry until they see the coffin. Chapter 27. The police come to your door. Brother Yi, don't worry. I will find a chance to deal with Li Xiaotian. He even dared to provoke me. When Weiwei came in, he happened to see Li Xiaotian provoking him, and he patted his chest and said, "Let's go and change clothes." Ye Xiaotian smiled and walked into the locker room, followed by Weiwei. At 8:30, all the security guards were present and had changed their clothes, looking very impressive. Of course, among them, Ye Xiaotian is the most eye-catching. The security uniform with black lines is perfectly set off by it, and the toughness and masculinity that comes through the body are full of it. Combined with Ye Xiaotian's resolute and courageous face, and his muscular body that is firm and solid but not overly exaggerated, one look at him makes people feel as if their heart is being hit by a heavy hammer. Men, that's what you should do. Oh, I really don't want to stand with Brother Yi, the gap is so big. I originally thought that I had a good figure, but in front of Brother Yi, forget it. My heart has been deeply hurt. Voices of envy and jealousy rose one after another, and everyone had a look of frustration on their face. They are both security guards, both men, wearing the same security uniform, so why is there such a big difference? Bang! Zhang Peng walked over from the captain's office with a gloomy look on his face, and when he saw Ye Xiaotian, his gloominess became even worse. Everyone be quiet, are there any rules at all? Zhang Peng said with a gloomy face. Listening to the envious and jealous discussions around him, his mood became worse and worse. Swish! The scene suddenly became quiet, but everyone was still feeling a little resentful. Why are you taking your anger out on us? If you have the guts, take it out on Brother Yi. I'll give you the guts. He was so aggressive yesterday, but in the end, he still couldn't do anything to Brother Yi, right? Let me assign the guard duties for today. Zhang Peng didn't know what everyone was thinking. Seeing the scene become quiet, his gloomy expression slightly improved. While speaking, he glanced at Ye Xiaotian, and immediately a nameless anger surged in his heart. Honestly speaking, if it weren't for his reason, he would have caused trouble for Ye Xiaotian a long time ago. What happened yesterday not only made him lose face in the security department, but also made him lose his impression in front of Dong Shui. Just wait and see, I have plenty of ways to deal with you. Ye Xiaotian stood in the crowd, feeling Zhang Peng's gloomy and fierce gaze. He frowned but then relaxed his brows. Come on, just come on. Weiwei, stand guard on the 14th floor, Ye Xiaotian. Zhang Peng assigned tasks. When he read out Ye Xiaotian's name, a ruthless and complacent look quietly emerged in his eyes. The guard post he assigned to him this time was not a good place. But before he could continue speaking, the door of the security department was suddenly pushed open. Bang! The door was pushed with considerable force and it sounded like the person was up to no good. Who? Zhang Peng's face turned ugly in an instant, but when he looked towards the door, he was stunned. Why are the police here? Yeah, why are there police? The security guards looked at the police at the door with strange expressions and talked among themselves. Ye Xiaotian, your death is coming. Li Xiaotian stood in a corner with a slightly ferocious look on his face. Having already learned of Brother Yang's plan, he believed that Ye Xiaotian would not have an easy time this time. Even if you are highly skilled, would you dare to attack the police? I don't know how many of you are. Zhang Peng was stunned for a few seconds before he reacted and spoke to the policeman at the door. Who is Ye Xiaotian? There were 3 policemen in total, all men. The leader had a flat head and wore glasses. He interrupted Zhang Peng directly and asked in a cold voice. You're looking for Brother Yi, what's going on? Is he going to get into trouble outside? Sure, don't talk nonsense. Listening to the discussions, Zhang Peng's eyes lit up, and his mood, which had been ruined by the other party's interruption, improved at this moment. He glanced at Ye Xiaotian, thought about it and still didn't say anything. He wanted to see what was going on first. I am. Although he said a lot, it was only a few seconds away from reality. Ye Xiaotian did not care about the discussions around him and stood up and said directly. Are you Ye Xiaotian? Well, come with us. Zhao Dagang's eyes were full of sympathy and pity. He actually dared to offend the director and Yarn Lin. He really didn't know how many eyes their horse king had. 2 policemen stepped forward and prepared to handcuff Ye Xiaotian. This scene fell into the eyes of everyone, and they all sighed. It was obvious that this was a real crime. Zhang Peng's eyes lit up again, and his intuition told him that the opportunity to deal with Ye Xiaotian had come. Wait, what are you doing? Why are you arresting Brother Yi? Huang An stood up with an indignant expression on his face. He didn't believe that Ye Xiaotian would commit a crime. Huang An, do you have the right to speak here? Shut up. Zhang Peng scolded righteously, then turned to Zhao Dagang and said, Officer, I am the captain of security here. Ye Xiaotian is my employee, so how can I know what he did? Zhang Peng spoke, and although he had a smile on his face, his eyes were full of gloom. He needed to know what Ye Xiaotian had done. If the matter was too serious, then maliciously beating others, causing serious injuries to many people, the circumstances are very bad, he can't get out. Zhao Dagang casually said, and then waved again. What are you waiting for? Take him away. The two policemen were holding handcuffs and were about to put them on Ye Xiaotian when they suddenly felt cold all over. They looked up and found that Ye Xiaotian was smiling at them. The smile was very mellow, but the coldness in it frightened the two policemen, and they subconsciously put away the handcuffs. I advise you not to take me away, because there is one thing you know better than me. Ye Xiaotian's face was calm, and he showed no fear or nervousness at all about entering the police station. What? Zhao Dagang asked reflexively, and the others also looked at Ye Xiaotian. It's easy to invite a god, but hard to send him away. Ye Xiaotian's words were sonorous and powerful, but what he said surprised everyone. Har har har, do you mean you are God? Zhao Dagang laughed heartily, and then his face suddenly turned fierce. Then you really think too much. I tell you, don't even think about getting out after you go in this time. Maliciously assaulting others and seriously injuring multiple people are all serious matters. Take him away from me. Zhao Dagang waved again. He looked at Ye Xiaotian's calm face and felt uncomfortable. Other people would be terrified when talking about going to the police station, but Ye Xiaotian in front of him was so calm. You will know what it means to go to the police station soon. Zhao Dagang thought sinisterly in his heart, and Ye Xiaotian looked at him deeply, smiled, and then walked towards the door surrounded by two policemen. Li Chuanyuan looked at Ye Xiaotian's back, the hatred in his eyes intensified, and at the same time, a ferocious look appeared on his face. Seeing the undisputed king of high school becoming a prisoner, his heart was filled with perverted pleasure. Huang An was somewhat unwilling, but just when he was about to rush forward, Zhang Peng behind him suddenly spoke. I declare that from today on, Ye Xiaotian is officially expelled. Our Ouyang group does not need such people who break the law and discipline.